This episode is sponsored by The Pets Table. Want to give your dog something better than the same old kibble? The Pets Table provides personalized dog food that's actually good for them. All their recipes are formulated with a board-certified vet nutritionist to preserve nutrients, protein, vitamins, and antioxidants. And each plan is customized to your dog's specific needs, including allergen-friendly options. Get 55% off your first box plus 10% off your next two at thepetstable.com with code COMMAND55. That's thepetstable.com, code COMMAND55.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And today we're talking about Lorwyn. We're back on Lorwyn / Shadowmoor. Depends on where you stand.
Yep, you might be on both at the same time.
Who knows?
That can happen now.
That would be kind of horrifying. Half evil, half
You're in
good.
the dusk area.
I don't know.
I read a little bit of the lore, but I still don't necessarily get it. Yeah, we're talking about the cards from the new set that can go in your 99 or that we expect to be seen on Commander battlefields across the world.
Yeah, and as usual, there's a lot of cards that are really good for super narrow strategies. There's a lot of Typal cards in this set. There's a lot of like really narrow cards that are in the commander set, the commander decks. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about those. We may not even bring them up in this episode because they're pretty easy to find and they're going to show up on a lot of deck lists that you can find online.
Yeah, you don't need us to tell you to put the card that cares about elves in your elf deck. So we're going to talk about the ones we think are a little bit more broad, or maybe that like, hey, you might have missed this about it.
Yeah. All right. Let's get started with one that looks pretty familiar.
Yeah, it does.
This is Bitterbloom Bearer. Black for a creature fairy rogue. It is a 1/1 with flash and flying. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 blue and black fairy creature token with flying. Yes, they put Bitterblossom on a fairy with flash.
It costs black instead of 1 and a black. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the major difference. It's a creature with flash. Creature,
so
it costs a little different.
Dying to creature removal is like a big downside. We run a lot more creature removal than we do enchantment removal, but the flash pretty much guarantees that you're going to get at least 2 bodies out of this thing.
Yeah, and you get your 2 bodies kind of faster if you flash.
You have 2 bodies instead of 1 body, but they're sort of less safe.
And the one has kind of haste, I guess, if you think about it that way. I think there's some upside and some downside to that, obviously. This is going to be deck dependent whether you want to run this over the other one, or maybe you might want to run both. If you're running one, I think you probably often will.
Yeah, as long as you can pay that black cost, especially on turn 2. I think that's going to be the biggest difference between these 2 cards and whether you can put it into your deck is if you are heavy enough into black that you can reliably cast this on turn 2.
Yeah, because one of the most powerful ways to play this kind of effect is casting on turn 2, so you get maximum value, maximum amount of fairies created throughout the course of the game. And having to wait till later makes it a lot worse. I will say this is quite a bit better as a later draw. Because again, you'll get those 2 bodies and be able to make use of them with your other synergies. Whereas Bitterblosom's kind of slow if you draw it on turn 6 or 7. This is still slow, but not as slow.
Right. And yeah, you get something right away. You start with a fairy in play. So a lot of upsides to this. I think we're going to see a lot of play. It's good with all the same things that Bitterblossom is. It just has that a little bit more restriction in that casting cost.
Yeah, I think this is probably going to be a little bit better in decks that have like on combat, like if you're running Reconnaissance Mission or Coastal Piracy or in like one of those like, hey, on combat damage, you're going to draw a card. This is going to be a little bit better because you'll have sort of 2 fairies earlier. You want the body to get your other synergies going. So like ninja decks probably like this a little bit better. We know Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is coming up, so there's likely to be some ninjutsu. You know, because again, this is a thing you can bounce back to your hand and feel pretty good about it. Or you just get that fairy. You get 2 of them, harder to remove one. You know, because you've got 2 at once. And so it can just work better in some scenarios. I would say that probably the downside of it being a creature makes it a little worse in just strictly token go wide decks. Like if you're playing Bitterblossom as just like a token production machine because my deck likes, wants to have a bunch of tokens out, you probably like that Bitterblossom is not as susceptible to board wipes because the rest of your strategy is so susceptible to board wipes.
It's a little more stable, yeah.
Yeah, so in a token go wide strictly strategy where it's just like the classic, I'm going to make a wide board and then pump it all, this might be not as good as Bitter Blossom just because it's not as resilient. And you're like, well, I'm already going to fold to a board wipe. At least Bitter Blossom gets me back on my feet faster. Yeah. Whereas this dies to the board wipe and you don't have any token production going on afterwards.
Absolutely. It's definitely a lot squishier.
It also is just like, I like surprise and I like flexibility. So the upside of this also is to be able to do things like hold up your counterspell, you know, again, on a little bit later turns, maybe when you draw it. And, didn't have to counter anything. Now I have something productive I can do. Right. There's a lot of value in that. So I think this is actually, you know, there's a bunch of callbacks in the set, and we're going to get to a few of them in this episode. There's probably one of the better ones that's like closer in power level to the original. There are some quite a few that are like, we just don't make them like we used to.
Yeah. Yeah, this will look familiar and feel familiar on your battlefield. Moving on to this next one, I'm obsessed with this card.
All right, this is Dream Harvest. It's 5 and 2 hybrid Dimir mana, so you can pay 5 blue, 5 black, or 5 a blue and a black. So 7 mana no matter what. Sorcery, each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they have exiled cards with total mana value 5 or greater this way. Until end of turn, you may cast cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
Okay, so you are guaranteed 15 mana worth of things. Yeah. And assuming you have 3 opponents.
Correct, yeah. You can't hit less than that because they'll keep going until they get to that. But it can be greater, right? So they flip over a 2 mana thing and then a 7 mana thing. You're going to cast both those things because that's 9 mana. They stopped once they got to 5 or greater. So yeah, I would assume like you're probably going to average something like a little over 5 per person, so it's probably closer to like 17 mana worth of stuff every time.
I was thinking about this. I was like, in most of my decks, I'm running 2-drops and 3-drops, so let's say you're most likely to hit 2-drops. If you hit 3 2-drops, you get to 6 mana. If you hit 2 2-drops and a 3-drop, you either hit 5 or 7, depending on what order you hit them in. So I would say you're averaging about 6 off of everybody. Because
so if you hit double 18 mana worth of stuff for your 7 mana?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And like
it's obviously going to be worse against some decks that will have a lot of 1-drops and some things like that.
But then you cast like 5 spells.
True. Yeah. But it's like, as far as mana efficiency to what you paid to what you got. But yeah, either way, you're double. The very least, it's 15 mana worth of stuff for 7 mana. So you're doubling, you know, the amount of mana you spent versus what you get.
Right.
You find that these are... Each thing you get is a little less powerful in general, though, because you don't have the synergies that the other decks have.
Right.
So, you know, but when you look at the comps, the comparables for this.
They're pretty good ones.
Yeah. Itali Primal Conqueror is similar. I mean, obviously, you can trigger that multiple times. It's not the exact same thing, but it is an extremely powerful card that has a similar type effect.
Yeah. But you can whiff on Itali. You really can't whiff on Dream Harvest.
Good point. You can hit counter spells. You can hit X spells. You can definitely hit things that don't do much, but it's a little harder to whiff, I'd say, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
A big one that I was comparing it to is Fevered Suspicion. This is a card I play a lot in my Rakdos decks. It's 1 more mana, but it gets 1 spell off of everybody's deck and has a rebound. So you get 2 spells off of everybody's deck for 8 mana over the course of 2 turns rather than right now. So I think this one is considerably better than Fevered Suspicion. It is obviously 1 mana cheaper. Where I picture Dream Harvest the most is decks that are trying to cast big sorceries for big impactful turns multiple times or for cheaper.
Yeah, and I also like that it's in blue. I played around with Fever Suspicion for a while and then ended up taking it out of most of my decks because it does sort of quote unquote whiff a decent amount as far as like you don't get something that big. This guarantees like a minimum value that you're going to get back, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And then also it being in Rakdos is not as good as it being in blue, which has the Snapcaster Mages and the other things that sort of like give you the additional synergy. It's a lot better home, I think, in Dimir for sure.
Yeah, I also think that like in blue and black, there's a lot of decks that want to cast big splashy sorceries that like make an impact and move you toward winning the game. And a lot of times those are extra turn spells or they're theft spells.
Yeah.
And in like lower power pods, both of those things are a little bit more taboo, can draw you a lot more heat. This is a spell you can cast that is impactful, puts you up on the board, you can copy it, and it isn't going to feel super power inappropriate at certain tables, which I think is cool. We don't have a ton of spells that are like Dream Harvest.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think this is strong enough and good enough to just play as a good card in your deck that has Dimir, or do you think you need additional synergy in order to sort of justify it?
I mean, you mean being able to cheat it into play or reduce the casting cost in terms of synergy?
Yeah,
or just...
you got instance and sorcery synergy, something that says like this is a little better than it would be if I just if I plan to just cast it.
Cares about having your opponent's spells, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe you can fork it. You have some, whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I really like the idea of this in like my Lord of Tressorhorn deck, which is sort of card inefficient. I like, because I run Favored Suspicion in that deck. I've run it for a while just to have something like, okay, I'm behind on board. I need to just dump all my mana into something.
Yeah, and this will give me a good return.
Ton of cards for one that I spend one card. So I like it in spots like that. And that's not a ton of synergy other than just I spend a lot of cards kind of flippantly. So I think this can comfortably fit into a lot of blue and black decks and feel perfectly fine. I even like it in aristocrat decks because you could get some bodies that you don't necessarily care about. There's you can get a couple of mana rocks. Like I don't think you have to hit super crazy for this card to feel powerful.
Like you got your 7 mana's worth.
I agree. I mean, you got 15 mana back, so it feels pretty good.
All right.
Yeah, I like Dream Harvest a lot. But let's, if you want to pick up any of the cards that we're talking about today in this episode, we're going to be talking about a ton. We're going to be talking about some sweet stuff. The art in this set is unbelievable. You can go to cardkingdom.com/command and you're supporting the show. Lorwyn is a gorgeous set. Basically every card is completely stunning. So I've just been like scrolling through the thing and being like, well, I need one of those. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but look at it. So you can do that at Card Kingdom super easily, especially when a new set comes out. I just make a list of all the cards that I'm excited about. And then you can take that list and paste it into their advanced deck builder. It'll tell you everything that's in stock, which is usually a lot when it's a new set. You can get a ton of those cards in one place, pay shipping once, know that they're going to get to you safely and on time. So we trust Card Kingdom for all of our card buying needs. And if you use Card Kingdom and use our affiliate link, you're helping out the show and it goes a long way. So use our affiliate link at cardkingdom.com/command. Get some cool cards.
And of course, the game accessories brand that we also trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone is Ultra Pro. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you can find all kinds of cool products and deals. They have a lot of discounts on their website, or if you sign up for their newsletter all the time. They have cool themed playmats. We love the Mana 8 line, which is just classy looking with the mana symbols on white there. There's also all kinds of stuff from the past, like the Final Fantasy foil binders and deck boxes, which are sold out constantly. But
they just did a new drop. They released a couple new, not new art, but art that they had never put on merch before. It's on their website now.
So they're doing stuff like that all the time. And their foiling process has actually gotten really, really good. We worked with them for our recent Kickstarter, and I know that they've gotten really accurate with the foiling, and it looks really, really cool. So again, ultrapro.com/command is your place to go to check out all of that and also get the best accessories to protect your game pieces.
Finally, you can support the show directly by going to patreon.com/commandzone. You can directly support all of the content that we make. Plus, there's some sweet perks like getting to be on our Discord. You can ask me, Josh, Jimmy questions directly. You can show off deck lists. And at certain tiers, you get access to game nights and extra turns a day early without ads.
Yeah, that's all tiers.
That's all tiers?
Yeah,
well, there
all
you
tiers
go.
get game nights and extra turns early, yeah.
Look at that. And that's the best because you can watch it before anybody else has seen it. So we've had patrons that have like caught little things where you're like, oh, you've got the wrong card on screen here, or the life total is slightly off at this moment. Can you fix that? And well, we've made changes and uploaded it correctly the next day. So a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's great to have our patrons as sort of help us with QC.
Yeah.
Definitely they help us all the time. So if you want to get involved in the content and support at the same time, patreon.com/commandzone.
Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode. And this one is dedicated to Just Kyle. You rock, Just Kyle.
You definitely rock. All right.
The next card that we're going to talk about is a part of the cycle. We're going to focus on this one card, but we can talk about how this cycle works.
Yeah, there's a cycle in each of the sort of major 2-color combinations, and they all kind of work similarly. This is the one we think probably has the best chance for you to see a decent amount. It is Wistfulness, which is 3 and then 2 hybrid Simic. So 5 mana total for a 6/5 elemental incarnation. It says when this creature enters, if green was spent to cast it, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. And it says when this creature enters, if blue was spent to cast it, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And then it has evoke for just 2 Simic mana. So blue, green, or green. Interesting templating. Obviously, if you cast it for 5, you can play green, blue, and then one of anything and get both effects. If you evoke it, there's no way to get both effects. You can only get one of them. But if you do blue, you get that one. Green, you'll get the removal spell part.
Yeah, I think this is really neat templating. It makes it sort of this strange modal spell where it's like, okay, it's 2 mana for a Naturalize-ish, it's 2 mana for a Chart a Course-ish, or it's 5 mana for both of those with a body.
Right.
Assuming you can pay the blue, green cost. And I think if you can't pay the blue, green cost, it's a pretty bad modal spell.
You can't run it, I don't think.
I agree. I think you
have to have the
really need
option
to
to do
be
both.
heavily into Simic. You need to be able to have your mana fixed enough that you can pay both the green and the blue and both at the same time, or these start looking a little worse. Something that's interesting to notice is what we're used to with Evoke Elementals is that it's an ETB that you can blink and reuse that ETB.
Yeah.
These don't work that way. If you blink them, you haven't spent any mana to cast them, so you don't get to reuse any of these effects. They're effectively cast effects. So it makes it significantly worse in our format that's sort of designed to abuse ETBs or designed to cheat it into play in that way. You can get sort of a 6/5, I guess, by blinking this, but that doesn't really seem worth it.
Yeah, I think this templating is cool from a design perspective in that it's kind of new and it's a new angle of attack on something, but it's net negative for commander players in that if it was just an ETB, I think this is totally different and you can play it in a lot more decks. But the fact that it's a cast trigger, it's just so much harder to sort of reuse and manipulate. And it kind of means that, and this is the reason there's 4 other ones which we can put on screen, which are Catharsis, Deceit, Emptiness, and Vibrance. I won't read what they all do, but they're templated the same way.
Right.
Where it's a cast trigger depending on the mana that you spent to cast them on a decent sized body, and they have kind of 2 different effects, then maybe you get both. But the fact that you can't ever just keep reusing, there's not really a good way other than like bouncing it back to your hand and recasting it, which is not efficient. That's not how you want to do things. You want to cheat the mana cost in some way. Maybe you cast it the first time for the effect for its real price, but then you're blinking it for 1 or 2 mana, or just an activated ability somehow, or getting it back out of your graveyard, or making token copies of it, or cloning it. All those things don't work with the cast trigger. So it's just
clones do if you cast the clone.
Yeah, it's just harder to abuse, and I think our format is about figuring out ways to sort of break cards, figure out the puzzle of that card and then get more out of it than you're supposed to, kind of. And these are just really hard to do that with.
Yeah, I think they're super cool, and I think I would start considering to run them if I was like in a Karuga companion where I want things to be a little bit more expensive, so the modality is really nice, or the creature-ness of it matters, where it's like you can't run instants and sorceries. So now I'm starting to look at creature effects, and the modality is nice, but the fact that it's a creature sort of needs to matter. Otherwise, there's just more efficient spells that kind of do what they are, because they do feel like sorceries in a weird way. It feels like the Naturalize the Chart a Course or Naturalize Chart a Course and like make a 6/5 token is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because you can't really do anything else with the 6/5 token. So they feel sort of worse than a creature in this slot normally would.
Yeah, I would say I would only consider running one of these if you want both sides. Either side. So if you would be willing to pay the evoke cost for either thing on it, or there's one thing where you're like, I'd always be willing to pay the evoke cost for the one thing. So like, I always am willing to pay 2 white mana for 2 1/1s. If that's a thing that you're like fine to do, and then you're like, if I cast it later and get the whole thing, that's just gravy. And
you're talking about Catharsis.
Yeah. And that's why I think we like Wistfulness the best, is because both of those are very broad. Do you want to be able to kill enchantments and artifacts? Yes, you do. Is 2 mana, draw 2, discard 1 fine? Yes, it's fine. It's neither of those are amazing, but the fact that you get the flexibility of like A, B, or C being the whole shebang, 5 mana, get both things, get a 6/5, means that that makes it probably playable. But if you're looking at these things and you're like, well, I really only want it if it's the full package, like to cast the whole thing, then probably not worth a slot in your deck. It's just going to gum up the works too much. You need to be able to be like, no, I would evoke it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other ones that are worth looking at, I think Catharsis and Deceit are more for 1v1 play. I think they're going to see much more play there and are quite good there. For us, the next 2 are Vibrance or Emptiness. Emptiness is a removable spell or can bring back something 3 mana or less. That's in Orzhov. And Vibrance tutors for any land, puts it into hand, or is a lightning bolt at sorcery speed. So both of those are like, I think Vibrance is sort of the next closest, where you're like, all right, I go get my like Nykthos and I can kill a thing. But even that at sorcery speed is a pretty tough slot to compete with.
Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love either of those as much.
Yes. I think Wistfulness is going to see the most play in our format. All right, let's move on. We're getting into the set alphabetically, talking about Aberrant, there we go, Aberrant Return. 4 black for a sorcery. Put 1, 2, or 3 target creature cards from graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Each of them enters with an additional -1/-1 counter on it. So this is another 6 mana reanimate some stuff. We've seen this before in effects like Command the Dreadhorde, even Afterlife from the Loam, which is recent, has Delve, or Breach the Multiverse, which everybody mills 10 and reanimates some stuff. Aberrant Return has some interesting differences about it, but this slot is sort of a crowded type of effect.
Yeah, there's enough decent ones now that there's no way you're running 4 of this effect in your deck, right?
No, certainly not.
Probably
maybe 2?
2 max, maybe not even 2. Yeah, and so you're kind of like saying, okay, A, what do I have access to? Like, what cards are in my collection? I think any of the 4 are fine and kind of close to each other. But once you've got access to all 4, then it's like, does this make it in the deck over the others? Afterlife from the Loam seems like the best to me because you can cast it for so cheap in certain scenarios.
And it gets 4 creatures.
Yep.
As does Breach the Multiverse is each player. Yes. Afterlife from the Loam and Breach the Multiverse specifically get 1 card from each graveyard. Including yourself. Where Aberrant Return only lets you get 3, but you can choose multiples from the same graveyard.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest upside in Aberrant Return is you can get 3 cards from your graveyard.
Yep, that's a good point. Command the Dreadhorde has the upside of like you could get 10 things back depending on what's going on. And then Breach the Multiverse has the upside that it puts a bunch of stuff into the graveyard before you do this so that you're not kind of reliant on your other synergies or the regular course of the game putting things into the bin. So all of these are just things to think about. Now, obviously, if you have -1/-1 counter synergies, this gets a little bit better because maybe you actually want counters on your creatures, or maybe it's not even -1 counter or -1 counter synergies. It's just counter synergies.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden this might be bumps up and gets ahead of the other ones. Hard for me to, I would almost always prioritize like just raw mana cost that I'm going to have to pay. Like being able to just pay 3 black for Afterlife from the Loam is so powerful to be able to like get a bunch of creatures out and still have mana open for either something else or hold a protection or whatever is so much more powerful than just paying 6. But maybe it could be in second place in a -1/-1 counter deck. Otherwise, I think it's behind at least Command the Dreadhorde and maybe Breach the Multiverse.
I think it's ahead of Command the Dreadhorde. I was actually talking to somebody recently about Command the Dreadhorde because it's a late game play that costs a ton of life.
Yeah.
And lately in Commander, you
point.
just really can't pay 12 life to this, which would be like, I get a 6-drop and 2 3-drops, which doesn't seem greedy, doesn't seem crazy, but costs you like half your life total in the late game. So I've taken Command the Dreadhorde out of a lot of my decks just because when it's in my hand, I'm like, I can't afford to cast this. I will die. Especially in the decks where I want it. I have a lot of life paying effects already. So my life total is pretty precarious toward the late game. So I would consider Aberrant Return in Reanimator decks or self-mill decks where I know I'm going to have the best targets at the table and I want 3 things out of my graveyard. And I want something like 3 Animate Dead stapled together. Because that's really how I picture this, where Afterlife from the Loam and Breach the Multiverse, I think, are better in mill decks or decks that are actively fueling your opponent's graveyards.
Yeah, I guess I'm just used to playing with lower life total. Like I'm always ending games winning, but I'm at 3 or 4 because I'm just also obviously attacked first all the time. So
you got to be careful.
But I agree. I think life total is sort of more precarious than it's ever been just because the format has sped up. So it is harder to spend life. Okay, well, interesting. I think Afterlife from Home clearly number 1, but number 2 maybe is in a contention. I think 7 mana for Breach the Multiverse makes it really, really tough. Just that extra mana at that point in the game is just really hard. I never end up like feeling like that's a good idea.
I would consider Aberrant Return right along Breach the Multiverse, but does have to be built around more. Breach the Multiverse, you could slam kind of into whatever deck. If you're a big ramp deck, if you're in a black deck, like, sure, you can play it. If you're in a spells deck that's copying it, like the Dream Harvest card that we were talking about before, sure. But I would consider Aberrant Return a better reanimator spell.
Okay, interesting. I think I would, Dream Harvest for sure, I think you can play on its own. I don't think I would probably ever play Breach the Multiverse in a deck that doesn't care about the graveyard already or isn't trying to like mill myself at least or everybody. Just because 10 cards is great, but you could still have slim pickings.
That's true.
Yeah.
Worth noting with Aberrant Return, it is pretty bad at bringing back like little things. Like if you get a Sakura Tri-Belder, it dies immediately. Those kind of things.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Normally at the top point, you're at 6 mana doing this, though.
You're really trying not to bring back. Really not trying to bring back a Sakura Tri-Belder. All right, let's talk about this next one.
Okay, it is Adept Watershaper. It is 2 and a white for a 3/4 Merfolk Cleric. Other tapped creatures you control have indestructible.
Yeah, 3 mana for a static indestructible effect is very efficient.
Yeah. The comparisons are Flawless Maneuver, which is a one-time use but can be 0 mana. Boromir, Warden of the Tower, which is one-time use on a 3 CMC creature, but you have to sacrifice it to get this. And then Avacyn, Angel of Hope, of course, is the one everybody always thinks of when you give everything indestructible. It's an 8 mana creature, but also gives everything indestructible except itself with no other stipulation. Doesn't have to be tapped or anything.
It is indestructible. Avacyn's indestructible
Avacyn's
as well.
indestructible and gives other indestructible.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
So it makes it very difficult.
I haven't actually seen an Avacyn in play in many years. 8 mana is just too much.
Yeah, usually that's reanimated in. But this card is a lot more efficient. It's a lot more aggressively costed, and I think it is going to go in a lot more aggressive decks.
Yeah, this is really good if your deck wants to attack because creatures become tapped when they attack. And some of the ways that can be hard to attack are like when they have a profitable block. Even if you've got 3 things, you don't really want them to just eat one. This says, just slam them all 3 in there. They block one, it doesn't die, and the other 2 get through.
Yeah, I picture this kind of like a Dolmen Gate in those decks, where it's like Dolmen Gate prevents the damage done to attacking creatures.
Yeah, same idea.
But Adept Watershaper is sort of like can protect them post-combat, where Dolmen's Gate only protects them in combat. Your tapped creatures are indestructible for the Watershaper.
Yeah. So decks that want to attack this feels really, really good. I also think decks that just have a lot of wraths.
Yeah.
And white, this is decks people don't like to play or play against, so be careful with this. But white does have sort of a nice suite of protection to the point where you can easily build decks. I played against them. It's fine. Where their whole plan is like get some stuff out and then cast a wrath, and while my stuff is indestructible in some way. And that can be really, really powerful. And this will kind of feed into that. Obviously, it will die because it doesn't give itself indestructible, but like usually one of those is probably enough. It creates a one-sided board wipe out of a Wrath of God kind of deal.
Yeah, totally. As long as you can figure out how to get your creatures tapped, this is going to do the trick. It obviously doesn't protect itself. So that, because it says other tapped creatures, so you have to be a little careful with that. This will die. So you can't do damage-based board wipes, but you can do like Wrath of Gods.
Marked on it. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think another kind of decks that would maybe think about and would like this are decks that can easily tap their creatures, especially at instant speed. So if you've got like a vehicle as Commander Shorekai or something like that, this becomes like, oh man, you really can't go to remove their stuff very easily. Although it won't really work like you want to against single target removal that well, because most of it in the format doesn't tend to be destroy anymore.
Bounce, exile, make it smaller.
Yeah, exactly. So there will be some answers to this. This is why being proactive with your own wraths is a really good way to go with a card like this, just because it's like, I know what I'm going to do here. Play this, attack, wrath. Yeah, and it's like, yep, it was 2 cards, but I got like a 10 for 1 on the table, kept my whole board intact, and theirs is gone.
Yeah.
That can be very powerful. This is a crowded spot, though. Like, there are a ton of cards that do a version of this. We listed those 3 at the start, but there's Boros Charm, there's Heroic Intervention, there's just a ton of things now that, like, your deck can only have so many of these. So I'll be curious to know, like, does this make the cut?
Yeah, this exists in a slightly different spot because it's like, it's on a 3 mana 3/4, so it can wear equipment, it can attack, it can like, if you're in an aggressive deck, the body means something.
Right.
It can wear counters.
But it also is a thing they can see, and often like Boros Charm gets them, right? Because they don't know it's there. And so Flawless Maneuver gets them, right? They just have no idea that you've got it. I mean, they can have an inkling that it's possible, but like, this is like, it's on the table.
Right.
So I have to deal with that and then do my
Kill
thing.
This,
they know what to do. Whereas
it's such a lightning rod.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of times your protection being in hand and the possibility of it being in hand is actually more powerful because it'll kind of hold them back. And then when they do it, they use their whole turn and you're untapping with your board and they wasted their turn. They won't waste their turn when they see this. They won't just cast a wrath, right? So...
Yeah, for sure. I think not having the tricksiness makes this more of a speed bump than an actual trick or even protection spell. It says there's one more layer to dealing with my stuff. but it doesn't make it impossible. I also wanted to note that I looked at the top 5 Wraths that are played in Commander right now. This doesn't answer 3 of them. It's, of course, Farewell, Cyclonic Rift, and Toxic Deluge. Basically is only good against Blasphemous Act, and no, it's not.
No,
because
it's not.
It dies.
It dies, and all the damage is marked on
It's
them.
not even good against Blasphemous Act. So it's like, it's not good against 4 of the top 5 Wraths played in the format, which just means it's not going to be great board protection in against Wraths.
Yeah. It's almost like we're come around to like, really you want to put this in a deck where you're the one wrathing.
Yes. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Is if you can actually make this happen, because I don't think it's a great defensive piece. I would think of it like a Dolmen Gate is the best way to think about it. All right, let's move on. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this guy. What?
This one's pretty cool.
This next one is Curious Colossus. Curious indeed. 5 white for a creature, giant warrior. He's a 7/7. When this creature enters, each creature target opponent controls loses all abilities, becomes a coward in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness 1/1. Period.
Yeah, it's not until end of turn, and it's not until this creature leaves the battlefield. So you just turn all their stuff into 1/1s with no ability. That's what that stuff is, unless they can bounce to their hand or kill it and reanimate it.
Flicker it. Yeah. This is, it just comes in and Overwhelming Splendor somebody automatically.
Overwhelming Splendor is like almost a direct comp for this.
Yes.
It's just an enchantment. It costs 1 more, but it does basically the same thing.
Yeah. Overwhelming Splendor, if you remove the Splendor,
Yes.
the creatures go back to being normal, and it's an 8 mana in the enchantment side. It makes it harder to cheat into play. So I do think this is considerably better than Overwhelming Splendor.
Because it just does it, and
It just does it.
Well, it's better for a bunch of reasons too, which we'll get into, but like it's easier to do things with creatures than it is enchantments as far as like cheat them in, blink them, abuse it, right? Like, so you can definitely see scenarios where it's like, you know, discard this, reanimate it, blink it, turn, everybody's creatures into 1/1 with no ability, and you didn't pay 7 mana, you paid 5 mana to do that,
Right.
that kind of stuff. So that makes it a lot better than Overwhelming Splendor, because Overwhelming Splendor really can't do that.
Oh yeah, it's also worth noting that because
Clone it.
Overwhelming Splendor is a static effect, all creatures that enter after this are
That's a good point. That's a good
are
point.
1/1s
They're
on
future
Overwhelming
creatures.
remain 1/1s with no abilities, where Curious Colossus allows them to have future creatures.
Yeah. That's a good point. Sudden Spoiling is a card that I definitely thought of when I saw this.
Yeah,
because,
that's interesting.
Because it's a similar thing. Now, Sudden Spoiling is a card that casuals don't play a lot because it's really a combo stopper type card, but it is very powerful if you've ever played with it, and it can really like get people out of nowhere where they think they're going to win in a turn, or they think they're going to have a really big turn, and you just turn everything off. Split Second is really big here, but like that gives me a pretty, because I don't play Overwhelming Splendor and I don't see it in play very much.
No.
So that gives me a good idea of like what this effect feels like when it's on the battlefield, just some sort of comp to think about it. And it is a very powerful effect, which leads me to believe like if your deck can give flash in some way, this will become a lot better, because the ability to just sort of do this when they don't know it's going to happen, and they're about to go to attacks, you do this.
And you have the most information about what player to hit.
Yes, exactly. And it's a big, huge thing. You could do it in combat when they attack. Like, imagine they've got the tap creatures you control thing, give them indestructible, they attack with everything. And you're like, cool, flash this in, turn them all in 1/1s, has no abilities, nothing's got indestructible, block everything. That kind of stuff can be brutal. And also, if you want to do the flicker reanimate thing, 7 mana is a lot. So flashing this in, untapping, flickering it, getting 2 players, that's a big deal. So I think this is particularly a card that really wants you to be able to cast it at flash if you can. And I would really think about playing it if my deck had like Winding Canyons or High Fate Trickster or something.
Any way to turn this into more of a trick rather than a mass disruption spell. I think this one's really interesting in like reanimator decks. I think it's a decent spot. White reanimator targets are pretty crowded, just because there's so many good angels will actually win you the game, where this one feels like a big disruption piece, but not necessarily a big win con, which is kind of what you want out of your 7 drops. And I like that it is a humility, Overwhelming Splendor type of effect that allows them to keep participating in the game,
right,
where you can play new things that'll get better. It's closer to just wrathing their board than it is to locking them out of the game, which is what the other 2 do.
Yeah, it's not a blood moon, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think there's definitely homes for Curious Colossus. I think you're definitely looking at it if you're blinking, if you're reanimating, and then the flash speedness of it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I could never play this if I'm just planning on casting it for 7 mana.
Yeah,
it's
7
just
mana.
not worth it. There's too many things
speed.
at 7. I'd rather Dream Harvest is so much better than this for 7 mana, right? Like, just the amount that you're going to get. And in games where you're not behind or don't need to do this to somebody, like, this is not very good. So you need, to me, you really need to be like, okay, my plan is not to cast this. It's to cheat it out in some other way. So I'm self-milling, I'm reanimating, whatever it is. I'm sneak attacking. Then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more viable. But if the plan is just like pay 7, drop this on the table, you know, really mess up one player who hopefully I'm not ahead at that point or this doesn't do anything, I don't think that plan's very good.
The spot that I like it the best are either in Orzhov decks or in Naya decks, where Naya decks are trying to cheat this into play. Often they're sacrificing at end of turn, like with a sneak attack type of thing, where it leaves a lasting impact on the table and you need redundancy of powerful ETBs.
Yeah.
So that's what I would be looking at Curious Colossus.
All right.
Okay, moving on to Endblaze Epiphany.
All right. Endblaze Epiphany is X and red for an instant. It deals X damage to target creature. When that creature dies this turn, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to its power. Then choose a card exiled this way. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card.
Okay, so this is a kill spell that draws you a card.
Yeah, and it draws you sort of the best out of your top whatever cards, depending on the size of the creature that died. Right. So, I like... So Commune with Lava and Electro Dominance, 2 cards that I like decently and that see a decent amount of play in red. Commune with Lava is obviously look at a lot of cards, but it always costs you a ton of mana.
Right.
This is remove a creature, look at a card on its base level, which I think is fine. And especially since these days, like a lot of the creatures you want to remove are not that big. It won't cost you a ton of mana. Yeah. Sort of replace itself. But I really like that there's this sort of hidden mode on this card, which you can just mark, you can just lace the target. You just mark the target for 1 red mana. X is equal to 0. So it's like Rachel goes to remove a creature. So she's like, you know, point my Assassin's Trophy at it.
Yeah.
And with that on the stack, I just go, okay, cool.
This one.
I will pay 1 red and I will target the same creature. And then I dealt 0 damage to it, but I marked it with the Endblaze Epiphany. And now when it dies to Rachel's removal spell, I will look at the top, 5 cards in my library and pick one and sort of in a sort of cantrip-y way. Yeah,
I didn't think about that. I mean, the fact that this is just a red cantrip in specific situations is really interesting. It's also, you could do this like post-combat. Somebody makes a free block where it's like, all right, I'll block your 5/5 with my 6/6. It's got 5 damage marked on it.
Oh, yeah.
So you just like deal the 1 damage and, you impulse draw. Well, you look at the top 6 and you get to pick one of those. So you can kind of muck up combat in a way that...
it can work sort of like a combat trip that you don't care that you sort of got 2 for 1 because you get the card back.
Yeah. I mean,
you can also do it the other way. Like somebody attacks you, Rachel, with a couple of creatures, and you block one that's going to die. I can mark it with the Endblaze Epiphany and just get the card off of it that way. That's another scenario. Somebody wraths in response to the wrath. Mark the biggest creature out there, and then look at the And then that scenario, it becomes a little consult the star chartsy. So no wonder I like it because So the instant of it all, and again, it just does have this base mode of just like on the end step before my turn. Kill the most scary thing, replace this card with the best card out of my top 5 or 6, and move on with my life. And it was a pretty efficient way to go. Dug me deeper to something I'm looking for.
Yeah, these kind of effects are sort of tough to come by in red. I feel like a lot of the spells like this are sorceries.
Yeah.
So they're just really hard to play like red X is 3 on your own turn, even with upside. But the fact that this leaves you a little bit more flexible, you can use it in a couple of different spots, and it gives you so much selection. Red selection is usually like rummaging, is like discarding and then drawing. So it makes you sort of just barrel in. And this is a lot more thoughtful about what kind of cards it picks up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a point where you're like, I need a land, you're probably going to be able to find that. And you're like, I definitely don't need lands, then you can do it. I mean, we know that just sort of looting and card selection is powerful. So
yeah, it gives you until the end of your next turn. Yeah. Cool. Endblaze Epiphany, secret modes on it. This next one, there's not much to say about it other than, is Formidable Speaker.
It's good.
2 and a green for a creature elf druid. This is a 2/4. When this creature enters, you may discard a card. If you do, search a library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. It also has an activated ability. Why not? 1 tap, untap another target permanent. So a few things here. This is obviously good with anything that wants to untap. If your commander has a tap ability, if you have big elves that tap for a lot of mana, if you have big lands that tap for a bunch of mana, you're starting to look at this card. And then there's a tutor on top of it.
Yeah, it comes with kind of, I guess, a worldly tutor.
Yeah.
Because you're down a card. I guess you were up the card because it came back into your hand. So
Yeah,
it's more
that's-
like just an Eladamri's Call or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is our cards that get played and
Absolutely,
are good. So
and
just
are expensive.
Creature tutors are just good. This is 3 mana, gives you the body and has utility. Like, yeah, that just seems like a lot in a package that we're going to see this a lot. Like this card is just going to be good. And you don't need to get much out of that tap ability to have it be something like even just like, okay, and then I can untap a creature so I can have it on defense is probably enough considering the tutor that you got and you just went and got your best creature or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, this card seems pretty gnarly. I can think of a lot of places where it's really, really good, where it's just going to be like, okay, I'm going to... Like it's gross in graveyard decks or reanimator decks where you're like, I'm going to discard my Massacre Worm. I'm going to go find this, like the Metamorphosis Fanatic. I'm going to play the Metamorphosis Fanatic, reanimate like the thing.
Yeah.
Like it just gives you a tidy little line. And then on top of that, there's utility.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it for my Tim deck because it's like play this, discard a card, go get my Seedborn Muse, cast that, and then the untap ability is super real in that deck.
Yep.
Either I untap something that has a tap effect, or I like to put like a bunch of Market Festival type stuff on a land, untap that, spend my 1 mana to get 4 back kind of deal. Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways to just sort of abuse this.
Would you put this in a deck where you just want the creature tutor and like everything else is kind of like, I don't like discarding a card isn't great and the untapping effect I don't have like a ton of plans for?
Yeah, I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you probably want synergy, but I think it is probably good enough in that like it's just one more than like an Eladamri's Call, which we do play. And for the 1 mana, you get a 2/4 that has an ability. So like, would you pay 1 mana for a 2/4 that says pay 1, tap, untap target thing? You probably. At 1 mana, that seems like really good. Just a 1 mana 2/4 is like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think it probably just is playable. Now, could there be better cards for that slot if there's no synergies? Probably, but it's not going to be embarrassing ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Another powerful elf. Also, it's worth noting you don't have to discard a creature card. It's just discard any card. A lot of the creature tutors like will force you to discard a creature card to get a creature. This one is not that.
All right, next up is a card that has me written all over it.
It
In
does.
fact, Rachel, I appreciate you setting this up so that I'm the one that gets to read it.
I nailed it, yeah.
Yeah. But before we read that one, we're going to take a quick break here and hear a message from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Racers, start your business!
Strap in, gearheads! It's me, Farfortune End Boss! When this year kicked off, I didn't just start my engines. I also started my engine parts and repair shop, thanks to a big nitro boost from Shopify. The new year is a perfect time to hit the ignition and launch that big business idea you've had idling for years. And Shopify helps you attack it head on with everything you need to sell online and in person. They got my online store set up at max speed with tons of built-in templates and powerful tools to tune up my product pages and marketing campaigns. And as my business accelerated, Shopify kept up the pace, helping me go full throttle into new markets, all from the same easy dashboard. That's why millions of entrepreneurs have made Shopify their co-pilot on the road to success, including the Command Zone. Cross the starting line in 2026 and your fortune might not be as far off as you think.
In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/TCZ. Just go to shopify.com/TCZ. Again, that's shopify.com/TCZ. Hear your first this new year with Shopify by your side.
How do you do? I'm Haldan, Avid Arcanist. There's no one who brings me more joy and cards from my opponents than my loyal companion Paco. Fetch, Paco. He's more than just my pet, he's my partner with And if he's gonna bring me the highest quality cards, I need to feed him the highest quality food. That's why I switched to the Pets Table. They've got personalized dog food from the expert team behind HelloFresh. It's minimally processed to preserve the nutrients and vitamins your dog needs for things like immune health and an active lifestyle. So Paco can stay hasty thanks to food that's more tasty.
Yummy.
Each plan is customized to your dog's needs. And with a money-back guarantee on your 2-week trial, you don't have to risk it for the doggy biscuit. In fact, their human-grade fresh food looks good enough to eat myself. Don't worry though, I won't.
Help your dog live their best life with high-quality food from the Pets Table. Take advantage of this limited-time offer. Get 55% off your first box plus 10% off your next 2 at thepetstable.com and use code COMMAND55. That's thepetstable.com, code COMMAND55.
This message is sponsored by RAYCON.
You know what I really want to work on this year?
What's that?
Being a better listener. Really hearing people more.
That's actually awesome because I have some big ideas for the office. The first one is everybody gets a puppy. The second one is every puppy.
Put it in an email. What I'm talking about is I want to keep using my RAYCON Essential open earbuds. They make me a better and safer listener by letting me hear my surroundings when I'm playing my music and podcasts. The open ear design means I still get crystal clear audio quality without blocking out important stuff like car horns or alarms.
Or puppy barks.
I've really been liking my RAYCONs for the gym. They're lightweight, comfortable, and the 36-hour battery life with 8 hours of playtime means even my arms will give out before they do. Plus, they're just half the price of other premium brands, and they come with a 30-day guarantee.
Those sound like the perfect earbuds for when you're out walking your brand
I already have a dog, Rachel.
But this one will be smaller and more lightweight, just like
The Essential Open Earbuds are here to help you crush your New Year goals. Go to buyraycon.com/commandopen to get 20% off site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/commandopen to get 20% off site-wide. Thanks, RAYCON, for sponsoring.
One fish, two fish, red fish, clue fish.
Dr. Seuss?
No, I'm working on Morph on fish Typal. Just want to make sure I have enough fish to actually draw some.
Oh, well, you should use ARCHIDEKT's hypergeometric calculator. See? ARCHIDEKT makes it easy to check your chances of drawing what you need, whether it's a certain creature type, mana value, or category of cards, like ramp or draw spells. I use it to check my land count. See, in this deck, you only have a 61% chance of drawing 3 lands by turn 2. Might be a little low.
Okay, I'll cut a basic or 2.
Wait, you mean add?
Nope, I've got a reputation to uphold. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
It is Glen Elendra Guardian.
She's back and has a new job.
I think, yeah. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Because Glen Elendra I always thought was the name.
Nope.
It's not. It's like the title. Anyway, Glen Elendra Guardian, 2 and a blue for a 3/4 fairy wizard with flash and flying. This creature enters with a -1/-1 counter on it. Then you can pay 1 and a blue, remove a counter from this creature, counter target non-creature spell. Its controller draws a card.
Okay. Very similar to Glen Elendra Archmage. There's a couple of a little tweaks here and there.
I mean, there's a bunch of differences. This is like the modern day fair version of Glen Elendra Archmage, I think. It is.
They've made her a little bit better and a little bit worse. So the big difference is it's 1 cheaper to get on the battlefield. So
right, this is 3 mana value versus 4.
Versus Glen's 4. It has flash.
Correct.
Which makes it a little bit trickier, which is cool.
On a counterspell, that is good, right? Like they don't necessarily see it coming.
It's 2 mana to do the counterspell instead of 1 mana to do the counterspell.
So you kind of evens out with its casting cost, I suppose?
Yeah, it's still 5 for the first counterspell.
Yeah.
But it also gives the controller a card. So that is a big downside where it's like you counter the spell and it replaces it. The other thing about this is they have different base number of counterspells attached to them.
Right. Glen Elendra Archmage, you're going to get 2 because it brings itself back. And then you can just activate its ability again because of the persist. It won't come back the second time, but you got 2 counterspells with no help from anything.
Right.
This comes with 1 counter, and once you remove that counter, you need other synergy to put more counters on it in order to continue to counter more spells. So it comes with 1 counter spell.
It also kind of goes the opposite way, where the Guardian enters as a 2/3 and becomes a 3/4. Glen Elendra Archmage enters as a 2/2 and becomes a 1/1 once you've used the first counter spell.
Right.
So this one gets bigger, the Archmage gets smaller.
Yeah. So when you do the whole comparison, I think the OG Glen Elendra Archmage is just quite a bit better. The big things I would look at are counterspelling for just 1 mana. Because if you figure you play the Guardian and then people don't want to cast things, you're deciding on spells whether you want to counter them. But in order to do that, you got to leave 2 mana up all the time.
Right.
Whereas Archmages just leave 1 mana up all the time, which is a huge difference. And then also the fact that you just automatically get 2 counter spells instead of 1. That's just twice as many counters for half as much mana.
Yeah, they also function very differently, right? Like, Glen Elendra Archmage sits on the battlefield and says, don't cast non-creatures.
Right.
Where Glen Elendra Guardian has that flash ability, so it's sort of like a 5-mana counterspell that comes with a 3/4 fairy that draws them a card and has counter synergies. Like, it's sort of more of a counterspell trick than it is a deterrent.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's going to be its usage a lot of time. I do think you can just sort of flash this out to use your mana on an early turn, and then just, in the decks that want to hold up their mana anyway. So it's just like, on turn 3, at the end step, flash this out, draw, go. Everyone's like, ugh.
Yeah, now
what do they have in their hand? And the non-creature spells are automatically going to get countered. Nobody wants to necessarily pull the trigger on it. They're trying to bait it out, things like that. So I think it will have both ends. But you're right. It does have a little bit more surprise to it. Yeah, and then the drawing the card, which I didn't even discuss there, is sort of a pretty big downside of the Glen Elendra Guardian. You can obviously envision scenarios where you have counter synergy and you're able to put, because it's any kind of counter, right? So it comes with a -1 counter, but if you manage to put some other kind of counter on it, not a +1 counter because those will cancel each other out unless it has none currently, then you can get to the point where like maybe you put 5 counters on this thing. And you're sitting there with a ton of open mana and everyone's just like, crap. I can see the 5 counter spells right there. And anything that's going to remove this is probably a non-creature spell. So like, how do we get through this? And that's a way that control decks can kind of eventually get to the point where they grab control of the game. It's like, just, I have enough mana resources and this thing has enough synergy that you can see it. I can counter everything. And then they don't want to do anything. And so this card has that. Glen Elendra can also do this with other synergies, but it does feel a little bit easier to do that with the Guardian because there's just a lot more ways to like put +1/+1 counters like every turn onto something, or just put 10 on it all at once kind of deal. You just don't really get to do that in the same way with Glen Elendra Archmage because you can stack as many +1/+1 counters on it as you want. It doesn't up the number of counterspells you got.
Right. I couldn't see Glen Elendra Guardian just being a huge flyer.
Yeah.
Just being like, it's got 4 +1/+1 counters on it. It's a 7/8 flyer.
It's going to kill you, and it's also going to stop you from killing it or killing me.
I think that is the situation that I picture this the most, where I'm like, okay, it's great in +1/+1 counter decks. It defends your entire board, and it's a threat on its own. Like this in my Sabsunin deck is just like gnarly. It's a proliferate deck, so it can always keep counters on it, and it's a threat where I can attack with this rather than attacking with Sabsunin. I can see this being a much more physical threat than Glen Elendra, but I think if we're talking counterspell, then Glen Elendra Archmage, excuse me, they're both Glen Elendras, but where the Archmage is much more of a counterspell threat. They both are.
Yeah, I see it as like, this is probably better if you're a counters deck.
Yes.
And then it's probably worse if you're not. And then, could you run both sometimes? Sure. But like in general, and a +1/+1 counter deck is good for Glen Elendra Archmage because it dies, comes back with a -1 counter. You put the +1/+1 counter on it to take it off, and now it can die again. So you can get into sort of endless loops with Glen Elendra Archmage, but it's hard to stack 5 or 6 counters on her at once, which is sort of a different thing, and also can make you win stack wars that Glen Elendra has trouble with because the persist will go on the stack and it's not there yet to counter whatever they go, cool, in response to the persist trigger, pull this off. Whereas Glen Elendra Guardian in its scenario is like, cool, remove another counter your second thing because I'm still there on the battlefield. I didn't have to die and come back in order to do it.
Right, that's huge.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting. I like the design.
I agree. I think they're good in different places and they're so similar, which is cool.
They're definitely groaners. Like you play it, people are gonna be like, oh.
Okay.
Yeah, and in general, if you're playing, especially against a counter deck where like the commander they've got says the word counter on it in any way, if you have a chance to get rid of the Glen Elendra Guardian, do it because it'll be a huge problem later. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one with some of my favorite art in the set. This is Omar Ryan's art, and I'm obsessed. It's Goliath Daydreamer. 2 red for a 4/4 creature giant wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery from your hand, exile that card with a dream counter on it instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. When this creature attacks, you may cast a spell from among the cards you own in exile with dream counters on them without paying its mana cost. So once this thing is on the battlefield, you can cast spells. He stores them, so when he attacks, he can cast
Bring them
again
back out, yep.
while he's dreaming.
Yeah. Comparisons are double vision, which just like copies the first thing you cast, which is kind of what this does, right? Because you play it, then on your following turn, because it doesn't do anything with stuff you've already cast. It's just like, while I'm out, when you cast things, now I'll store them. So you play it, you cast something, then you attack with it, you cast that thing again. That's probably how it's going to go.
Right.
And so Torrential Gearhulk, I think, is another thing that's sort of in this mold of like recast a spell that you've cast. Now, Torrential Gearhulk says, I have access to your entire graveyard, but I can only do that once. Whereas this thing says, hey, if I can attack now and next turn, then I can keep doing this. So
yeah, this is a tricky card because it is scarier the better your spells are that you're casting.
Right.
So the way that I foresee playing this card, if I was playing it, is I would play it, cast no spells, and pass until my next turn, and then before combat,
for sure,
cast whatever I want to copy, store it under there, and give them the smallest window to evaluate how bad this is going to be to remove it.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I'll cast my extra turn spell now, and then I'll store it on this. I'll attack with this guy, recast my extra turn spell. Now I've got 2 extra turn spells, and they were given 1 phase change, really, to deal with the Goliath Daydreamer.
Yeah, I think extra combats and extra turn spells are probably the best thing you can do with this because they give additional triggers once this is out to like just kind of keep it rolling. Those tend to be, well, especially extra turns, decks that people don't play a ton. Yeah, I think it's dangerous too because they will see what got stored under it before you go to attacks. There's kind of no way for it to go any other way. So they can pretty much always find a window to remove this before you get the attack off, if they have a removal spell.
As long as they have instant speed removal, this thing will not attack.
Yeah.
If it's bad.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the big downsides of it is like you have to kind of show what you're going to do right before you do it. Now, like Rachel said, the smartest way is to do it right before attacks. Like I cast my extra combat spell, then it gets stored under this thing, and then I go to attack with it. And it's like, but you can't reduce that window to no window. There will be a window. So they go, okay, Swords to Plowshares, I do not want to see another combat, or 2 more combats out of this thing. So that part of it is dangerous, whereas Torrential Gearhulk just gets it, right? Like it's just going to do the thing. Like it's a little hard to go off with, but you are going to get what you're going to get.
Yeah, and it can be like a value piece that sits on the board and like reuses removal spells. You can politic with the person with the removal spell and be like, look, I'm just going to recast my Swords to Plowshares and I'm going to cast it on that. It isn't your problem. I'm not even going to attack you with it. Like, and sort of buy yourself a turn with it. So it may actually be better or at least easier to use if you're like casting cantrips or you're casting removal spells, you're casting smaller spells. And if this thing is on the battlefield, the odds that it is the greatest threat to them is pretty low. Is that fair to say? It depends on what's in the
I really
store.
think it's really depends because it's in the mold of like old school Narset or something where like it can just like one attack win, right? Cast extra combat, attack with this thing, get another extra combat. You got 2 more combats with it on the next combat, right? Extra turns are the worst because you get a full untap in there. But let's say, but also in lower powered tables, it's probably going to be like, okay, cool, you got to cast some removal spell or something twice. You got good value off this thing, but it's not like game ending. So yeah, this is one of those cards that like, it really depends on the power level of the decks in your pod and what people usually play.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm curious to see what this feels like on the battlefield. I have a feeling it's not going to feel very good or very safe. It's going to be a 4/4 that it attracts more attention than it deserves and gets killed a lot of the time. But.
Yeah, in general, these cards that just have to get an attack off and like are very in the open about what they're doing are just, it's tough to actually pull that off in real game situations. People just don't let that happen very often.
Also, it's a tight slot. This is a creature in a spells deck, probably.
Yeah, that's another thing to say is that this deck wants a lot of instants and sorceries, and the decks that have a lot of instant sorceries really have limited spots for creatures because all their synergies are usually around instants and sorceries. So does this fit in to your deck when it's like, again, I'd rather just play Snapcaster Major Torrential Gearhulk as a thing that I know what it does, whereas this is maybe if it lives, it does.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this next one. It's Hexing Squelcher. 1 and a red for a creature goblin sorcerer. This spell can't be countered. Ward, pay 2 life. Spells you control can't be countered. And other creatures you control have ward, pay 2 life. So, this card has been all over the internet because it's very powerful in CEDH. It says, hey, I'm resolving this card and I'm resolving everything after that. If you don't have a creature spell, I can likely win this turn. It's like a red silence effect, essentially. And it has this sort of ward ability that also protects your creatures. But as we know, paying 2 life for a ward effect just isn't that much of a ward effect. Like if I swords your thing and I have to pay 2 life for that to resolve, I'm going to do that. And it's not really going to be a problem.
Yeah, it can't be countered and it makes your stuff can't be countered. So the fact that it's like, this is going to resolve.
Yes.
For the most part. There are obviously some things that get around it, like bounce spells back to your hand rather than counter them, but they're
Sink it to Stupor gets around it.
Yeah, they're pretty narrow. And then as soon as it's out there, even if they go to remove it, just on top of the removal, you just go, cool, but I'm going to go off now and you can't counter any of the stuff I'm going to do to go off, which is how CEDH decks work in a lot of cases. So this just protects the win really, really well. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, obviously the CEDH people are all flutter with it, and I think they're probably right about it. In casual, I think it's like not really a card that we're going to see very much because we don't tend to end games in that way.
Yeah, I think it's borderline unplayable in casual because unless you're in a very counterspell heavy playgroup, which I'm sure they exist, it's not mine. This is a 2-mana 2/2 goblin that says you have to pay 2 life to kill it, and that is kind of nothing in our format. So. I'm not going to run this in any of my decks. You will probably always run it if you're in CEDH, but I don't think just because CEDH is talking about it, casual players should be.
This will be bad in most casual pods. Just the way that it interacts with the game is very specific, and that's not a scenario that casuals run into basically at all. It's like it's not a combo stopper; it's a combo enabler. If you're going to combo, then you want to play this first, and most of us aren't comboing in casual, not trying to anyway.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to this next one. I'll let you read this.
This one's cool.
Yeah.
All right. It's Mirrorform. 4 blue for an instant. Each non-land permanent you control becomes a copy of target non-aura permanent. Period. Not until end of turn.
That's it.
Each non-land permanent you control becomes a copy of target non-aura permanent. So you turn all your non-land permanents into the best non-land permanent on the board. Yours or somebody else's.
Horrors.
Holy crap. That would be so crazy. Can you imagine? Okay, and then I cast Give Probe, I'll bounce 27 things.
I was trying to think of like what the craziest thing you can turn this into.
Yeah, when you go down that rabbit hole, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
It's like, it's pretty nutso. So obvious comparisons to Mirrorweave, which does this to everybody's stuff for until end of turn, but is a crazy card that you may have seen in play that kind of give you an idea.
Cool.
Yeah. Nanogene Conversion is a Doctor Who card not many people play that sort of does a version of this. Infinite Reflection, also kind of on that list of things that are comparable.
We have a few cards that are just like turn everything into one thing.
Yeah.
For me, this is the best version of that effect because it takes all your non-land permanents and turns it into that. So it counts all your clue tokens, all your treasure tokens. It counts all your regular tokens. It counts all your mana rocks. It like if you have a lot of squares,
all your auras.
It
can't turn them into auras, but it will turn your auras into a thing, right?
Of target. Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Each non-land permanent you control.
Yes. So your auras turn into them. Yeah.
You got a bunch of rolls. It'll turn them all into something. Yeah.
That's fun. Turn all your rolls into stuff. I mean, this can do bananas things. I think the thing that you will see the most that is the craziest is all of your stuff gets turned into Academy Manufactors.
Oh my God. Yeah, because the deck that has Academy Manufactor wants to play
this card.
Oh my Lord. And then you make one token and you're
and it's like,
I make 27 treasure, 27 clues, and 27 food.
Yeah.
And then I play Snapcaster Mage and I recast my Mirrorform.
And I turn,
and I turn those into more Academy Manufactors.
I mean, it's not hard to just imagine this going crazy, right? You turn all your stuff into Mesmeric Orb. They die.
Everybody just dies before it comes back to your turn.
Yeah, for sure.
Nutso. Yeah.
And that's
the great thing is like it can be your opponent's thing. They play some crazy dragon. Sweet. Instant speed, end step. I turn all my things into that crazy dragon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be a lot of like, oh, so we're just dead?
Yeah. I've seen this with Mirror Weave, and it was sort of weird because of it turns everything. But in response to a board wipe, you can turn all your stuff into an opponent's blood artist.
Yep.
And you're like, great, now I have all these blood artists, and they're all going to trigger, and I'm going to be able to...
see each other die, and it'll kill everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
or they do that and you go, okay, cool, I'm going to turn them all into an artifact so they don't die to the board wipe.
Yep.
Or it's Cyclonic Rift. I'll turn them all into your Dryad Arbor. Oh, no, it says non-land, huh?
No, you can turn your non-land permanents.
Oh, you can turn them all into
land.
lands.
So if there's a Cyclonic Rift...
So you take all your treasures, foods, and whatever and just be like, I'm going to turn actually all this stuff into it.
Command towers.
Yeah, Cabal coffers.
Cabal...
No,
Blech.
legendary. Is it? It's got to be, right?
I don't...
Urborg is.
Urborg is.
Coffers might not be.
I don't think Coffers is.
Okay. Even if it's just Volcanic Island or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
Into just land that taps for mana. It's like, there's a board wipe. Oh, bummer. I'm going to lose all my stuff. Actually,
I think
no.
you're right. I don't think Cabal Coffers is
I don't think
legendary.
it is.
Because there can be a lot of Cabals and they can have a lot of Coffers.
That's true. It doesn't say which Cabal.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not
Yeah,
legendary.
you're
I
right.
didn't think
Every
so.
Cabal has a Coffer at least. Maybe
But
they have
then
multiple.
you don't have any swamps.
Urborg would have to be out.
Yeah, you have to have somebody else's Urborg.
No, you could have yours because it turns your non-land permanents into.
That's
stuff. So you would have keep your lands. So, yeah.
Cool.
So if you, that's a crazy thing. I don't know what you do with all that mana. Anyway, as you start talking about this card, this is what happens.
Right,
You're like,
yeah.
You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really fun. Mm-hmm. So the question is, it certainly can't go in every deck. And I like what you said earlier. It really goes along with rectangle theory, which we've talked about on the show, which is just this idea that like, I'm just going to make a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like food, clues, treasures, blood, whatever, tokens, 1/1s. I'm going to have a lot of coverage on my board of just like stuff out there. And then the question is like, then I'll just have some cards in my deck that leverage having a lot of stuff. They weaponize stuff in different ways. Maybe I can sack it and do stuff. Maybe I make it able to tap for mana and then I turn that into stuff. And this says this is a way to leverage all that stuff. You turn all your stuff into basically anything just because you have enough. Like if Cabbage Merchant is in your deck, then this is a good candidate in your deck. As if Academy Manufacturer's in your deck, this is a good candidate to go in your deck. Also just like 1/1 token decks that are like creating Saplings or whatever. This is a good candidate in your deck, right? Like you play your Avenger of Zendikar and then turn everything in Avenger of Zendikar, put out your fetch land, you know.
Yeah. I even wonder if it's like a win con and enchantress decks.
Yeah, just
Because
a way
you
to turn all that stuff.
All your enchantments and all of your enchantresses and all of your little things that are your like, I've drawn 1,000 cards, I've drawn this. All my enchantments are now your 6/6 with trample. Now your Colossal Dreadmaw.
Yeah.
Great. Kill you with those.
I love that it can target your opponent's stuff too because it takes a step out of the process. So like, let's imagine I'm doing the Cabbage Merchant Academy Manufacturer stuff. I've got my thing going, you know, you just did this on the Avatar episode where it's like, I have 27, 32 of this and 12 of that. And
Nothing
it's like,
to turn it into.
Yeah, what are you, it's like, cool, that's really cool. What are you going to do with all of it? And, yeah, but normally you would have to be like, okay, now play this and then copy everything into that. And you're like, no, just wait for opponent to play anything at all, right? Like a 3/3 would do it right now.
Yep.
Cool, 3/3. Cool. Turn it all into 3/3s. Attack you, win. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to also be the one playing the thing that turns into, which takes a lot of the sort of mana burden off of you for that extra step.
Yeah, I love any card like this. You don't necessarily have to have a plan where you're like, ooh, that's neat. I'm going to turn all of these into Blood Chief Ascensions.
Yeah,
what happens
this
now?
Is crazy.
Like, don't cast anything. Like, you can just sort of figure it out.
I'll just take, 7 Gilded Lotuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. From
Gross.
there, I'm pretty sure I could do cool stuff. Like, yeah.
I did want to ask the question is, should you have some things in mind to copy when you put this in your deck? Or can you just assume that there's going to be something?
I think you shouldn't put it in a deck unless you're creating so much. You can just generally create enough stuff that it won't matter that much.
So it's more about this stuff, like having a ton of things, than it is about having
where
something
it's
in
like,
mind to copy.
Where it's like, even if I just turn these all into lands, it'll be fine because I'll get 20 lands. And like that just will win you the game. Like just on my end step, it's got it's instant speed too, which is kind of nuts.
So cool.
Like they push it in every direction.
It's so cool that it's an instant.
So just the fact that like, because imagine that Cabbage Merchant game with you on that one turn where you had all that stuff before it all got wiped with the Boom Pile. Imagine in a scenario where like he plays Boom Pile and you're like, cool, just turn it all into a land right now.
That's fine. Then I
Yeah.
keep all my stuff. I
and you
maintain
have like
that
50
advantage.
lands.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we win the game when you have 50 lands?
Oh.
You cast everything all the time, right?
Yep.
Like I've won a lot of Commander games by just being like, I cheat 20 lands into play.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it reminds me a little of Orvar, where it's like Orvar can make a ton of things, and it's like a single-use Orvar, which is exactly how it should be.
Yeah, we both put the Orvar deck, and
which is awesome.
I was thinking like, I'll do all this stuff, and then what I actually do is just make a lot of lands.
Yeah.
That's it. Because as long as you got a lot of lands, everything else is easy. And you're like, I can do all the.
You build an Orvar deck, you're like, I'm going to copy Moldrifters and keep drawing.
No, you're not. You're just going to make token copies of lands. That's all you're going to do.
You're going to copy your Gilded Lotus and realize that you don't need to play Gilded Lotus.
Lands and everybody else has 8, you'll win.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. All right, let's move on to this next one. It's kind of similar, actually. It's Mirrormind Crown. This is a 4-mana artifact equipment. As long as this equipment is attached to a creature, the first time you would create 1 or more tokens each turn, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of equipped creature equipped for 2. So 4 mana to cast, 2 mana to equip, and then you have to make a token, but your tokens are really cool.
Yeah.
We've seen similar things to this. I think Moonlit Meditation is the best comp that we've gotten recently. That's an aura that does roughly the same thing. Or the instant is Mystic Reflection. You can do that on your opponent's stuff as well, but Mystic Reflection is you only really put in your deck. You can also use it proactively, I think.
Yeah, and I think Divine Visitation is an old one, but in the same mold.
Whenever you make tokens, instead of small tokens, you make scary tokens.
4 angels, yeah.
Yeah. Essex, Fractal Bloom, that kind of stuff.
And in general, you'd be happy if all your 1/1 token, you raise the alarm and you get 2 4/4s. Flyers. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
If this is equipped to a Sarah Angel, sick.
Yeah.
This definitely has the same problem as the like tap everything is indestructible thing, where it's just like a lightning rod. Basically, if you pay 2 mana to equip a thing, it's going to die most of the time.
You really gotta
at least in our play
equip
groups.
it and make the token the same turn you equip it.
Yeah.
But then you're looking at a scenario where you're like, pay 4 for this, go. You just did nothing.
Feels bad.
Yeah, that feels really bad. And they'll still be like, okay, cool. And then what do you do when it comes to your turn, you untap, and like 2 people have mana open?
And they're just ready for you to do something.
Yeah, because they know, so are you going to go to equip it? If you're not going to, why did you put this card in your deck?
It feels like you have to cast and equip on the same turn and be able to make tokens for free.
Yeah, that's what I think. You need a token engine online. And
this is 6 mana to get going, and then like when I go to combat, I already make 2 goblins or whatever.
Yeah, and it only triggers once per turn, right? So you really want to be able to do it on opponent's turns.
Yeah, that's true.
So like Cabbage Merchant, another one where like if you have a Cabbage Merchant deck, this gets a lot better because you play it, equip it, and then
this would have been
go,
so helpful for my Cabbage Merchant deck.
Yeah, and it's a lot harder for you to get nothing out of this, right? Like even if they go to remove it, you're going to at least make one thing, right? So yeah, I think that's a really good scenario. Halo Fountain was another one where it's like can just make a thing at instant speed. Just stuff like that. That's like, oh, I'll be able to make a token on the turn that I play this, either my turn or someone else's, and get value out of it right away. I would want to be able to do that before I even thought about putting this in the deck.
This one also, I think you need to look at your deck and make sure that you have at least 20 things that you can equip this to, that it is positive if you make copies of it.
That's the other problem with token decks, right?
Is like you don't have first of all, there's a lot of legends that go in token decks, and this does not get around the legend rule. So you need to have like, oh, okay, if I have multiple copies of like the angel that is a token doubler, sure. That's it. You have to sort of have those kind of things in your deck. And even then, if you have your token doubler and you equip this to it, people are going to absolutely spend a removal spell as fast as they possibly can.
You need not only like a bunch of things that you could envision equipping this to, but none of those things can really be above 5 mana.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, Avengers Zendikar. Sure, but you have to get that out, then get this out, get it on it, then make a token. Like that is just, you're lucky if you cast an Avengers Zendikar and untap with it.
Yeah.
How are you ever getting this on it and then, making another token in some way? Like it's just, you want that stuff to be cheap so that you can play it, then play this, put it on it, and still have had enough resources to get that engine online somewhere. So
yeah, it's pretty tricky. I think it's going to be really cool. I think there's going to be moments where it feels like, that was awesome. But getting to that position is going to be tricky. You're going to need ways to protect your turn, or you're going to need ways to protect your creatures. And you do need stuff to copy, and ways to make tokens. There's just a lot of pieces that you need to make this go well.
Yeah, it reads really cool. It will do a lot of work in sort of more casual pods where there's not as much removal, but I think in general there'll be a ton of spots where it just doesn't feel great, where you have hard time deploying it or you never really are able to stick it on something.
Yeah, I wish it gave it ward or something.
Yeah.
Like if it equipped and gave it ward 1 or 2, you're like, okay, now I can buy, does something for me here.
Yeah.
But let's move on to this next one. It's another white card.
Yep, it is Morningtide's Light. It is 3 and a white for a sorcery. Exile any number of target creatures. At the beginning of the next end step, return those cards to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. It also says, until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you, and exile Morningtide's Light.
Okay.
So on resolution, you exile it. You can't recur this thing.
A lot of things to notice here. You can exile your opponent's stuff with this.
It's any number of things, creatures.
So you can blink your board, you can blink their board, and all the creatures re-enter tapped. It protects your life total from damage. So this is combat damage or like impact tremors or Perforos type of damage.
Founder's Ignition.
But not like Blood Artist or anything that says loses life.
Yeah. Also doesn't protect you from like having to discard or your board getting wiped.
Right.
Mill, things like that. It's not Teferi's Protection where you can't be targeted. It just, you won't die to damage.
Okay.
Loss of life though.
Loss of life can absolutely get you.
Yep.
You can absolutely get garried.
Yeah. So you can blink one opponent's board and just shields them down, right?
Yeah.
First of all, they go away, so you can get free attacks. But even when they come back, your other 2 opponents can presumably be able to chip in. So it could be good against the archenemy. In certain scenarios, work kind of like
Galadriel's Dismissal?
Yeah, what's
That's
the
what
blue counterspell that taps everything down?
Cryptic Command.
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
Kind of work like that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's dangerous because a lot of people play Enter the Battlefield effects on their creatures. They will get those things.
Yeah.
So it's not good to just push in some extra damage. It needs to be like a kill you move if I'm going to use it in that way.
Right.
It also may be just like they have 1 or 2 creatures that if you get them out of the way will open up to attacks, bigger stuff, and you get a little value out of your board, blink a couple of your things, something like that. But it's hard to blink your things and get the attacks in.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to use this spell. I think it's super sneaky. For me, it feels like a front foot to Teferi's Protection.
Yeah.
Like a proactive to Teferi's Protection. So the most powerful that I can see this going is like, okay, in an aggressive deck, let's just start there, is you blink out like the arch enemies, you probably blink out the last player's board and you blink out the person immediately to your left's board.
If the arch enemy is the person to your left, it gets way worse.
It gets much worse. So you swing everything you've got at the player who's the arch enemy, and then you're protected. All their stuff comes in. They have free kills on the player who's last because their board is all tapped down, and you're much more difficult to get through. So it sort of buys you a turn. It gets you a free attack on the person who's ahead and has the biggest board, and gets your attack triggers or whatever that is. Or if you're in a blink deck, this can be a sorcery speed. I'm going to blink all my stuff. I'm going to like unequip all of your stuff. I'm going to kill all the tokens on the board. Like there's a lot of
tokens. Yeah, we didn't say that.
There's a lot of weird upsides to this that I think aren't going to be immediately obvious.
But your things all come back tapped, right?
They do.
So that seems horrible.
I mean, your life total's defended from damage.
Yeah,
so you're not going to
true.
get attacked.
That's true. I mean, they'll still get whatever like triggers and stuff they would get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep thinking it's a fog, right?
Yes. It's a pre-fog.
Yeah, it is better than a fog. It's until your next turn, but it's a fog. And it's a blink spell, right? And both of those are traditionally instant speed things. And turning them into sorceries is like makes them way worse.
But it's also a tap effect. It's also like
generally an instant speed thing.
And it gets rid of like an entire board of blockers, hypothetically.
That's not always instant speed. There are creatures that come in and tap everything. So
so it's a lot of things.
Yeah, but I just mean like taking stuff that is traditionally instant speed because there are reasons you only really want to do it if it's instant speed, and making it sorcerer speed, I think, is a pretty big knock against the card and hurts it quite a bit. I think we can come up with scenarios where it's good, but if we look at comparisons, like Teferi's Protection, like you said, obviously way better.
Yes.
Eerie Interlude is a blink spell for only stuff you control, but at instant speed, and the stuff doesn't come back tapped. And then we've talked a lot about Hide on the Ceiling and other cards lately. I still like Disorder in the Court, but of course it's 2 colors, so it's kind of narrow in that way. It also brings the stuff back tapped, and you can choose the stuff, but it's instant speed, and that's a big deal because you can kind of do it before your turn. This is a use we haven't talked about as much, but they go to attack you, you blink their stuff so it doesn't hit you, and then it comes back tapped so their defenses are down. And just the instant of it all is kind of why it's good, and I would never ever think of playing this card as a sorcery. So I sort of think that I'm on the same side with Morningtide's Light, where I just don't think I could play this card. I just don't think the scenarios where it's useful at sorcery speed are wide enough.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. Like Galadriel's Dismissal, I think, has a very similar sort of comp where it can eliminate an entire board.
Right.
And I use it for that more often than I use it for the protection. You can use it as protection. So that modality and that instant speed of it all does make it better. And sometimes you can phase out somebody's entire board and open attacks for somebody else. This does that as well. And having redundancy to that Galadriel's Dismissal effect of just being like, you thought you have blockers, but you do not have blockers, is very powerful. But it's weird to me that I'm like, I think this card is better in an aggressive on-the-ground deck than it is in a blink deck.
Right.
Where the instant speed of it all is the good part of blink decks. And so I picture this much more in a like Ishin deck than I do in like a Brago deck or whatever, which is weird.
You'd almost rather just tap down all the creatures then.
Almost, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are cards that do versions of that. They don't also come with the you can't take damage until your next turn clause, which is kind of big. I mean, there are plenty of games where you're like, if I just get one more turn, I'll probably be able to win, regardless of what else happens.
Yeah.
Usually you have to keep some portion of your board for that to still be true, but like it does have that, and I don't want to downplay that too much. That's worth something. Yeah. To me, I just think like the sorcery really hurts it a lot. It just hurts the flexibility.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting because I can picture, like I said, I can picture moments where it's very powerful, it's game winning, and I think that's where I would play this. Is if when you cast this, you can win the game. Like this is an evasion spell. This is your Achroma's Will. Like that, I think is where this card belongs. And in a blink deck, this is like fine. But there's just so much redundancy that gives you what this is at instant speed, so I don't think you run it. But again, you can just die to a Gary or a board wipe, or it doesn't save you from that. Oh yeah, there's something you didn't mention. We didn't mention is you can get back stuff that's stolen.
Oh yeah. Because it's any number of things, so anybody that's taken something from you can grab it. Yeah.
So if somebody's cast a Soul Harvest or whatever, you're like, thank you so much for casting that for me. Give it back.
Blinking it back to me.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. Okay. Oh, I wanted to ask, do you fire this if you're in a blink deck and you're playing this? I know we said that maybe it doesn't go there, but do you just fire this off as a blink effect on like turn 5, even though you don't think you're going to die?
I mean, I think you do if you don't have anything better to do and you've got like 3 or 4 creatures that have ETBs.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the silliest boy there ever did was.
Oft-nabbed Goat. It is 1 and a black for an 0/5 creature goat. It says pay 1, draw a card. Gain control of this creature and put a -1/-1 counter on it. Only your opponents may activate this ability and only as a sorcery. Then it also says when this creature dies, if it had 1 or more -1 counters on it, its owner draws that many cards and each other player loses that much life. So the person who cast it is the owner. So let's say I cast this. The other players, not me, can pay 1 during their turn at sorcery speed to put a counter on and draw a card. So let's say Rachel does that. Now she has the Oft-nabbed Goat, and it has a -1 counter on it. It's a -1/4. I was going to say an 0/4. And then...
And I draw a card.
Yeah, and she can't do that again because she's already got it, and only her opponents can activate the ability. So then on the next player's turn, if they want, they can pay a mana, do that, and now it'll have 2 -1 counters on it. And then the third person can do that, and then I could actually do it because my opponent has it at the time. Now, if everybody does it, it'll still have 1 toughness. But eventually, if it did die, then it would, let's say it has 4 or 5 counters. Let's say somehow somebody decides they're willing to put the 5th counter on it. It dies, it has 5 -1 counters on it. Me as the owner of the card, no matter who activated the ability, draws the 5 cards and everybody else loses 5 life.
This card's super fun. And it's like, when it's in play, the first time you play it, you're like nabbing it for sure.
Yeah, definitely the person to your left is doing it because it's 1 mana for a card, which is just a good rate.
Yeah, if it doesn't set me like a huge setback in my curve, I'm absolutely paying the 1 and yoinking this goat. But we found once we were playing this, once it got 3 -1 counters on it, kind of none of the other opponents want to activate it anymore because once it has the 4th on it, its owner can yoink it and it'll
put the 5th on it.
Put the 5th on it, draw 5 cards, drain the table for 5.
And they'll have drawn the one for yoinking it, so they're going to draw 6, drain the table for 5.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I guess if you haven't seen it, this is a reference to the Lorwyn card Goat Nap.
Yeah.
This is the goat that gets napped. Nabbed. That's the oft-nabbed goat.
Right, oft-nabbed.
That's me. His card's very interesting, and it's
a fun mini game that it creates. Yeah.
It definitely is a fun, interesting game at the table. And I think, honestly, if everybody pays and you're the owner and you have it and it's a 0/1 blocker that when it dies you draw 4 cards, that's a pretty good position to be in. So I think even
people don't
putting
want to attack it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a decent little rattlesnake to be like, okay, well, I don't want the oft-nabbed goat to die. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and you're in black. So what are the chances you don't have any sack outlets?
Absolutely.
Often you're in black and you have a ton, but I almost never play a black deck that doesn't have some.
Yeah.
You know? And so pretty good chance you can make this thing die for some kind of benefit. And even if you only draw 3 cards and drain the table for 3 at that point, and you already drew the 1 to kind of grab it back. So I think there's almost no real way for it to go terribly wrong for you in these scenarios where people play it fairly. So even if you steal it, nobody else does. I steal it back, got 1 card out of it, and then I'm able to kill it, draw 2, drain the table for 2.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good for my 3 mana. But there's ways it can go wrong, and those are like bounce and exile.
Yeah.
But then they're using a removal spell on this goat. Are you that sad? It's your
Not
2
really.
drop,
Yeah.
right? So even that doesn't sound like that big a downside. I think the biggest downside I can really think of is you're an Aristocrats deck. I play it, you steal it, put 1 counter on it, draw the card, and then sack it and go cool, Josh.
And
you can draw
1 card. But
And
even then, it's like a wall of omens.
Well, the wall's
sort
still
of.
there.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the wall of omens.
That's true.
Yeah, and you drew a card for 1 mana and then probably got a benefit off the sack. So it's not great, but
Right.
it is not like the end of the world. And it's kind of the worst scenario I can think of. I guess the worst scenario is you play it, everyone refuses to activate it.
Yeah, that's
not a good one.
That's not great. So you have to be at a table where you think your opponents will activate it. I mean, there's definitely going to be...
Somebody will.
Somebody always does.
It's 1 mana for a card.
You're like, I'm digging, and you can make a deal to be like, look, I'll give you the card off just draw the card off the goat. Just draw the card off the goat, and we can dig a little bit deeper to find a removal spell to help.
Somebody needs to hit their land drop. Somebody there's a Jimmy in a lot of pods. Jimmy will just always draw it without even thinking.
Yeah, it's like, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Give me this
thing. Yeah.
1 mana draw.
I'm doing that.
Present.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine. You'd have to have a really disciplined, spiky play group that you play this and nobody nabs it.
And if you're in a disciplined, spiky play group, you're not playing the off-nabbed
Right,
goat.
exactly.
You
You're playing,
know better.
what's that red 2 drop from earlier that can't be countered? You're playing that one.
You're playing both.
Yeah,
so they can't counter your goat.
Yeah, so at first this is not the kind of card that I like, and I immediately scrunched my nose up a little when I saw it. But then as I started to run through scenarios, I couldn't really think of one where it goes terribly bad for you. And I was like, oh, maybe. And of course, there's a bunch of upside that we're not even discussing yet, which is synergy.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you're in a -1/-1 counter deck, and this gets totally different and way better. For one, when you get it back, it will have a counter on it as long as it went away for a little bit, and you can manipulate those counters. But also, you can just put a bunch of counters on something all at once. So if you Black Sun Zenith and this thing is out, if you put 13 counters on this thing all at once, drains the table for 13, and you draw 13. Yeah.
Sweet.
And you're going to have a lot of effects in your deck that maybe that don't do 13, but do 3 or 4. And that's just a really good thing where it's like, okay, I can just turn this into a draw spell or incidentally draw as I'm destroying everything else kind of deal. So in a -1/-1 counters deck, this becomes really, really good. But I don't think that's a question. The question I had is this playable in just a deck? Or do you have to have the -1/-1 counter synergies in order to play it?
The only other place I could think about playing it is if you're in a deck that cares about your opponents controlling things that are yours. So if you're in a Blim Comedic Genius deck.
Interesting.
But in those decks, people aren't really going to nab your goat.
Yeah.
Because they will be punished for it.
Because then you will get their goat.
So, yeah. But the other option is like Blim. Usually those types of commanders have donate effects on them.
Yeah.
So you can donate the effect, you can steal it back, you can start putting your own counters on it, and it's a thing that you can keep giving away.
Yeah, that's cool. You give it to them and then stake it right back.
And draw a card. Like
Yeah.
that feels quite good to me.
At that point, they might be like, well, screw it, he's going to give it to me anyway. I'll just draw the card.
I'm just going to take
Yeah,
it,
it
and
might
we're going to
encourage-
kill the goat. We
Yeah.
got to get this goat off the table.
They'll draw a couple cards, but at least we want to deal with it, which is
Right.
actually good for you, right?
So I think like in those decks, I would start looking at this, and
Not
it's
a
a
lot of
little
those
bit.
decks, though.
There's not a ton of them, but there's more and more. They put like there's a red-black one, there's a blue-black one.
There's Zedru, which can't play this, but yeah.
Yeah, but like those kind of effects are getting more popular and tend to be really fun and interested in these kind of games. So I could see it if you're in the type of deck that just wants to have the table talking and wants to have politics and like wants to exchange control of things. That's definitely the only other place that I would consider playing it, other than the -1 counter deck.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. Maybe in a high toughness deck, you could play it.
It won't be high toughness for that long, but I guess when it's not, you're fine with that too. You drew a bunch of
It's
cards.
0-5.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's move on to a legendary creature.
This one's going to go in a lot more decks.
I do think this one will go in the 99 more often than it'll go in the command zone. It's Rhys the Evermore. So this is 1 and a white for a legendary creature elf warrior. It's a 2/2 with flash, and when it enters, another target creature you control gains persist until end of turn. So that says if it dies and it doesn't have a -1 counter on it, you bring it back to the battlefield with a -1 counter on it. And then it has an activated ability. White, tap, remove any number of counters from target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay. So many things to talk about on this card.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's a little bit of protection. So you can flash it in response to a removal spell, and the thing will come back to the battlefield, and then you can tap it to remove the -1 counter, and it's just a regular creature again. And that's sort of on its face what it does.
Yep.
But there's a lot of synergy to having a thing that can remove counters, especially any number of counters. Is it just from creatures? Yeah, just from creatures.
Yep.
But this can remove finality counters was something I was thinking. Like
Yep.
maybe you look at this in like my Shul Gengar deck, which is like an angel sacrifice deck that comes back with finality counters. So there's enough synergy there for protection, removing counters, that this might be worth it. But also there's a lot of combo potential with when you start getting fancy with Rhys.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Rhys is 2 mana with flash save of creatures. So
Yeah.
like that is like nearly playable.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that like if you have any amount of synergy for the counter removal thing, you can justify playing it pretty easily. And then also, I think maybe you don't even need that as much if you have ways to sort of recur it and take advantage of getting that persist trigger multiple times. There's definitely going to be combo potential. The 2 comparables we have for this are Luminous Broodmoth and Safi, Eric's daughter. Neither are exactly the same. There isn't a card that is exactly the same as Rhys. It has actually a combination of abilities we haven't really seen before. But both of those cards are notoriously combo-tastic. And this one will be too. It's really, really good with either Persist or Undying in general in your deck because... let's look at Mikaeus the Unhallowed, which gives a bunch of stuff undying all your non-humans. And the ability to continuously remove the counters so that you can undying again with a thing that already undied. Or Persist. Cauldron of Souls is one that sees some play are used to, not as much these days, but that's another way that's like, give it Persist with something else over and over again, because Rhys can only give it Persist once, but then remove the counters every time. So you're able to sacrifice or another way use those bodies like over and over. If you can get this on a Gary or something, you can often like loop it a couple of times and just win that way. So that sort of like goes to the graveyard, goes to the graveyard, comes back. We know those loops in Commander. We see them all the time, and they're super, super powerful. And since Rhys is an enabler for that kind of stuff, we just know it's going to be good.
Yeah, and there's already some combos that are starting to surface with Rhys. There's even mono-white combos that work with Rhys in the command zone if you want to stick that way. But it usually combines with some kind of blink card and some kind of reanimation effect that comes back with a +1/+1 counter on it. Because if you can bring something back with a +1 counter on it, then it doesn't have the -1 counter, and it means that you can persist it again.
Yeah.
So basically...
Resto Angel.
Yeah,
Resto
so
Angel's
if you
a
have
good one.
a Restoration Angel to blink Rhys, and you have some sort of way, like a Cathar's Crusade, like something that puts a counter on a creature when a creature enters the battlefield.
To counter out the Persist.
Right. So if you have a Restoration Angel, you can use the Restoration Angel to blink Rhys.
Right.
Rhys can give the Restoration Angel Persist, which then you sacrifice to a free sack outlet. and it returns to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it, and a +1/+1 counter from the Cathar's Crusade.
Right, so now it has no counter.
No counters.
It blinks Rhys.
It blinks Rhys, and we can rinse and repeat. So we have infinite dice triggers, infinite mana, depending on the sack outlet, and infinite ETBs. First day of class, if you're in red, or with, there's plenty of like green effects that say if a creature enters, it enters with +1 counter on it.
Works really good with Glen, Elendra, Archmage.
It sure does.
Yeah, because it's already got persist. So you just like sack it to counter the spell, comes back, remove the counter, sack it to counter the spell, comes back. Yeah, can you cast 3 things?
Seems pretty good.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of combos that can happen. With Rhys, it usually is going to go in the mono white, like sort of blinky loops that you can get into. But I think if you're building around anything that has negative counters, you're going to look at it as just a protection spell.
Yeah, my big question as usual was, okay, cool. It goes in those decks, which is pretty narrow when you think about it. Like, okay, decks that are playing around with counters in some way, and that have, really, it's you want a Persist or Undying bent to it, because like a +1/+1 counters deck doesn't necessarily want Rhys. I guess it's fine, but like it just protects the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you play this outside of,
outside of like combo lines or outside of counter lines, like where you're using.
And from a combo line perspective, that Resto Angel combo is like a lot of pieces to put together. And if you want to be combo-y, you can do better than that.
You absolutely can. Yeah. It's not really. I mean, Persist relies on it dying, which is a big problem. It doesn't work if it's bounced. It doesn't work if it's exiled. There's, like we said, Indestructible is not as good as it used to be, which means that
a lot of stuff's not dying, it's getting bounced or exiled,
Yeah, which means Persist isn't as good as it used to be. So it's not really a very complete protection. And there is a lot of complete protection, especially in white. So I would say that I wouldn't be running this unless I'm building around some aspect of the counters or...
I wish it could remove counters from target creature.
That'd be kind of fun.
Then I think it's like, okay, you could use it to remove the Persist counter, but you could also, like, it would have enough additional utility than maybe, but maybe I don't wish that. Maybe I don't want to see any card in a lot of decks, and that would make it maybe more playable in more decks. So maybe, I'm not complaining about the right things here. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying what would make me play it, but do I want you to design the card so that I would play it because it's more powerful? No, I probably don't.
Yeah, it's very interesting card, and I think it'll show up in a lot of decks that you're like, oh,
it's fine.
I could play it here.
Yeah.
I could, because it removes finality counters, or I could play it here because it has I've got time counters or something like that. So you don't want to remove time counters most of the time, but you know what I mean. So I think it'll show up more than we think, but right now it's a little narrow.
All right, the next card is also a legendary creature, but we're talking about it in terms of in the 99. It is Sonar, Innovative First Year. 2 and 2 hybrid is it, so 4 mana total. For a 2/4 legendary Goblin Sorcerer, has Vivid. At the beginning of your first main phase, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X non-land cards, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. So if Sonar's out, you'll look at 2. And then, for each of those colors, you may exile a card of that color from among the revealed cards. Then shuffle. You may cast the exiled cards this turn. So if you only have Sonar out, you cast this, you look at 2, you get 2 blue cards off the top. You can only pick one of them.
You can pick one of them.
If you get a blue card and a red card, you could get both. If you get 2 lands, you get neither.
Well, you go until you hit spells.
Oh, you go until you hit spells. Okay.
Yeah, so you're guaranteed to see 2 spells. You just may not be able to cast both of them if they're the same color.
Right, and they could be like green and black, and you can still get them. It's just for each of those colors you get a card, but you can't say this is the one for blue and this is the one, right?
Well,
am I reading that right?
Let's just say you just have Sonar on the battlefield. So you reveal until you hit the first 2 spells.
Yeah.
So they could be colorless.
If they say share color, you can't get both? Is that the way it works?
Yes. If they share, if they're both mono blue. If one's blue and one's blue red, you can be, this is my red spell, this is my blue spell.
But if they're both green, you get neither?
And you don't have a green permanent, you get neither.
Okay.
So and if you hit colorless, I don't like.
So you have to get a corresponding color for each color that you've got on the battlefield.
Yes. So the way I think about this is like I'm looking at this in like a blue-red spell
I'm already
stack.
out, by the way.
I know.
It's too complicated.
It is really complicated.
And I like playing a lot of colors.
I agree. But if you have like a blue-red spell stack
Yep.
and you have this in play
Sure.
and you go until you hit 2 spells, some
Yep.
of the time you're going to draw 2 spells off
Right.
of this.
And you'll basically always draw one.
You will basically always draw, unless
I
you
guess,
hit like
'cause you do
talisman.
artifacts? Oh, artifacts. Yeah.
So you would have to build around this a little bit, I guess.
It'd be low chance that you.
I agree.
you
That
hit
would be
artifact, but-
reveal cards until you reveal a non-land card. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're evenly split, the idea of this as like a Phyrexian arena that can draw you multiple spells on your main phase is like kind of interesting. In the 99 of a deck that has even more colors, there's even more upside. So you need
but
you
your
need more stuff
spread
in
of
play.
stuff is way more like not even. Like,
That's true.
I play a lot of 5-color decks, and you're never like I got exactly 12 of each color. Like that's not how that works.
Right.
So yeah, as you up colors, you up the variance of the color sort of matching what it is that you get.
Yeah, that's true. It's an interesting thing. I keep thinking about this card because the fact that this can draw you 2 spells a turn is very good in like a stormy blue-red deck.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if I hit 2 cantrips off of this and one's blue and one's blue-red, that's incredible.
Right.
If I hit 2 blue spells, you can pick the cheaper of the ones or not the counter spell or whatever. It gives you a lot of selection, and it's good in like Cast from Exile decks. It's good in decks that just want to see a lot of spells, like Storm decks, like Instance and Sorcery decks. So this is actually a pretty serious card advantage engine. I would really only play it in 2-color decks, though. I like it most in blue-red decks.
Okay, let's see. The math should be pretty straightforward here. Let's imagine a deck with 2 colors, evenly split just for simplicity. What do you think? Like 10 to 11 artifacts?
Sure.
Okay, so about a sixth of your spells.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 5 in 6 chance to hit one of your colored spells. That's like 83, 84%.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's about a 95% chance to hit, maybe even a little higher, to hit at least one spell. Like
right.
you're going to draw 1 card. And then the question is, how often will you draw 2 cards off of it? It's like somewhere 25 to 30%, maybe 1 in 3 chance to hit those 2 cards.
Sure.
And then sometimes you can whiff. So it's really low chance, but there is like probably around a 3 or 4% chance that you just get 0. So it averages out. I bet we're in the range of like, you'll average draw 1.25 cards per turn off of this or so. And of course, no deck is exactly constituted like that. And if you have a lot of spells that are both colors at the same time, hybrid spells and stuff, then your average can go up for sure. But if you have more artifacts, it can go down, but like somewhere in that range.
Okay. On to the next. We're talking about Shadow Urchin. This is 2 and a hybrid Rakdos, so 3 mana altogether for a creature. Oof. It's a 3/4 with whenever this creature attacks, blight 1. So it's put a -1 counter on one of your things. Whenever a creature you control with 1 or more counters on it dies, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards. Whenever a creature you control dies, impulse draw cards for the number of counters on it. Is a very powerful line of text.
Yes.
If you are in a deck that is sacrificing things and also putting counters on things.
Yep.
Which is actually fairly common.
Especially +1/+1 counter decks. I mean, that's a ubiquitous one of the top, 4, maybe top 3 archetypes that exist in the format. There's just a lot of decks putting a lot of +1/+1 counters, and this doesn't care if it's -1 or +1. It will help with the -1 part.
The first thing I thought of was a Zarel Genesis Shepherd. That's the Jund bug that
from
whenever
Yogi.
you sacrifice stuff, puts a pile of counters onto one thing. What a great thing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
You sacrifice this creature, you see 3 cards, at least 2 cards in a Zarel deck. And these like sacrifice
I see
outlet.
way more than that, though.
At least. Yeah, I'm saying 2 because that's his base power. And you're like,
When
well,
I saw it, it's like 20.
it's crazy. But this combination of like sack outlets and counters is a lot more common than you think. Like Jury Master of the Review is a commander that stacks up a whole bunch of counters on it and you want to sacrifice it. Impulse draw a whole bunch of things. Marchese of the Black Rose is a +1 counter sacrifice deck. Even if you're impulse drawing every time you sacrifice a creature, you're still seeing a card every time you sacrifice a creature. So I think Shadow Urchin is actually going to show up in a couple of different places, even though it looks really narrow. And it looks really focused on -1/-1 counter decks. I think it'll be much more common in +1/+1 counter decks.
Yeah, I think pretty good. Also good with Black Sun Zenith.
Yes.
As it turns out, Black Sun Zenith good with
Good card.
a lot of cards in a set that's centered around -1/-1 counters.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
All right, the next one is Soul Immolation. It is 3 red for sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, Blight X. X can't be greater than the greatest toughness among creatures you control. And what blighting means is put X -1/-1 counters on a creature you control. And then Soul Immolation deals X damage to each opponent and each creature they control. All right, confusing. So
Yes.
when you cast this, you can blight X, and X doesn't have to be, but it can't be more than whatever the highest toughness creature you've got is. So let's say you've got a 5 toughness creature. X can be 5, it can be 4, it can be 3, it can be 2, it can be 1. Then you blight that many, whatever number you've chosen, and Soul Immolation deals that many. Let's say you chose 5. Deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Harkens to Chandra's Ignition, which is way easier to read and understand.
Yep.
But it's sort of Chandra's Ignition,
But better.
but also if it were based on toughness rather than power.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
I think a good shorthand is like, it's Chandra's Ignition, but for toughness.
And you sort of have to sacrifice a creature.
That gets you most of the way there to understanding this card, but we're
Yes.
going to obviously go into some intricacies here.
Yeah, so the first thing is you do not have to blight the creature with the highest toughness.
Right. If
So-
you've got that 5/5, you can choose Blight as 5, but then you can put the 5 counters onto your 1/1.
Yep.
So it dies, and then you deal 5 to all the creatures and each of your opponents. Sorry, all the creatures your opponents control and your opponents.
Right.
It is one-sided. It does not hit your stuff.
That is the other big difference here. Is it's
Yeah.
one-sided from Chandra's Ignition, so it just hits them and their stuff. And then it is an additional cost. So a big downside to Chandra's Ignition is you target your biggest thing with the biggest power and they remove that thing, the spell does nothing.
Yeah.
This is an additional cost, gets you that X on the stack. So you're like, I blight 5, this is gonna deal 5 no matter what you remove.
If I go, and I'm blighting my 1/1, and you go remove the 1/1, doesn't matter. It's cool, but I just didn't have to put -1 counters on. I was going to die anyway. Yeah.
It's an additional cost.
Yep.
So they can't really respond to that cost. It's to put it on the stack. So there's a lot less risk involved with a Soul Immolation because you're not losing your own board. You can't be blown out by a removal spell. The biggest downside is that it cares about toughness rather than power. And in red, power is a lot easier to come by than toughness.
Yeah, and ostensibly it's like sacrifice something to do this as an additional cost almost. Yeah, it's just templated interestingly. The additional cost thing does mean like if you fork it or copy it in some way, you don't have to pay the blight again, which can be kind of good. And, having a 7 toughness thing, choosing X is 7, forking this, and then dealing 14 to everybody is a thing that can happen for sure. And of course, we're being pretty modest. Like, Chandra's Ignition honestly often, does 20 plus.
Right.
Because you just have a huge creature, and this will be able to do the same thing. Because most of the time when you have a 20 power creature, it's a 20/20 or something like that. Yeah. So it will work similar or better than Chandra's Ignition in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think this card is great. I think you're going to look at it in power/toughness matters decks as long as you're boosting both.
+1/+1 counter decks.
+1/+1 counter decks is where this is going to be the most cracked. Red-green counters decks is where I picture this. Like, because you don't even have to kill them with it, right? If you've got a 10/10,
if you do 20, then you just attack with the 20.
Yeah, I have a 10/10. I'm gonna blight 10. I'm gonna deal 10 to everybody. I'm gonna kill all your stuff, and I'm gonna attack you with all my creatures that survived this board wipe. Like, that's
survive because they didn't get hit by it.
Because they didn't get hit.
Yeah.
So it's like.
And I just had to lose 1.
Is just, you sacrifice your smallest thing to win the game.
Yeah.
And it's a lot less risky than a Chandra's Ignition, which I do not like playing because of how risky it is.
Yeah, I mean, Chandra's Ignition it's great. You just have to be careful. But this is going to be better in a lot of circumstances, which is crazy. Yeah,
I mean, this is one of the best red board wipes we've seen in a long time, and it has a lot to do with the fact that this is just one-sided. This doesn't affect your board, except for the one thing that you sacrifice.
Okay. So now to the question that I always ask.
Yes.
Which is, how broad is this? Meaning, okay, sure, +1/+1 counter decks with red. Anything where you're like pumping your creature. We'll think about playing this as one of their board wipes now, and probably one of their better ones. It's kind of like Delayed Blast Fireball almost.
Very much.
Right? But let's say that you're not pumping your creatures really. But your commander has 4 toughness or 5 toughness, and you have other creatures in your deck. It's not like a spells deck. Can you play this as like a 5 mana? At the very least, if my commander's out, deal 4 to everything.
Maybe. I mean, I definitely think about this in my Dragons Approach deck, which like will get dragons onto the battlefield. This does damage to all of my opponents. So it's a big burn spell as well for decks like that.
Like, would you play a card that says it's 5 mana sorcery, deal 5 to all your opponent's creatures and their faces?
I think so.
Right? I think I would, because most of the other ones I can think of also hurt my own creatures.
Right.
And
this is
one,
so much better than Chain Reaction.
Yeah. This is, your board doesn't get hit by this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we have a card that's 5 mana, deal 4 to all of your opponents and their faces. Right?
It's delayed blast fireballs.
Yeah,
Like the only
which is amazing.
One, which is
and
a great
you play
card.
it every time you play red, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, this is delayed blast fireball that scales up for the power on the board. So I think you definitely want reliably a 4/4 or a 5/5. And if you can meet
but if
that,
your commander is that, you probably just run it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just could be better than that. But like the low end expectation of like at its floor, it's that is pretty good.
Does seem quite good. I mean, in any sort of deck with high power, this is a win con, and in any sort of deck with reliably chunky creatures, this is a very powerful board wipe. Oh.
All right.
On to the next 5 mana red card, Spinerock Tyrant. This is 3 red for a 6/6 creature dragon with flying and wither. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with a single target, you may copy it. If you do, those spells gain wither. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this is sort of Zada, but it triggers if you only target your opponent's creatures as well, and you only copy it one time.
Yeah, it's kind of Zevlor.
Sure.
I also put Pestilent Spirit and Soulfire Grandmaster on there as like other cards that give abilities to your spells. One gives lifelink, one gives death touch. This gives wither.
Yep.
How much does the wither matter?
An interesting question, because it doesn't just give all of your instants and sorceries wither. It gives only your single target. Spells wither.
So Blasphemous Act doesn't wither.
Doesn't do what you want it to do.
Right. Lightning Bolt does, but then it's like, would I cast a Lightning Bolt on a 5/5 to make it a 2/2? No, I would not.
Not really.
So then the wither feels like it wouldn't matter there.
Then it's sort of like a combat trick. You're like, I make it smaller and I eat it. But like seems like a narrow
even in a -1/-1 counters deck, I don't want to run Lightning Bolt just to put -1 counters on, because what if I don't draw my Spinerock Tyrant?
Yeah.
I just run removal that's got -1
counters on it.
Yeah. So like, where does the wither matter? Like, what deck can we imagine where I'm like,
yeah,
it's cool text, but I don't think it actually does anything.
The biggest thing I was thinking about, I was like, well, it helps you get around indestructible. So like, if you cast Lightning Bolt and you have 2 Lightning Bolts, then it does -6/6, and you can kill a thing that's indestructible. But like,
how often is that? Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I guess my point here is like, you're playing this card for the copy part,
right?
You're not. The wither is like, borderline doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the time, it is not going to matter.
Yeah, this is a copy your single spell. Target things.
It's copy a removal spell. It's copy a pump spell, I guess. But most of the time, I think you're going to run this in sort of like a control-y Jund deck that runs a ton of single target removal. But even then, like, you have to be running a lot of removal for this to be good, like 20.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we say always, right? Like between around 20 or 25 is when it's a theme.
Yeah.
And then you can't just have a one-off card in your deck that synergizes with anything that's not like a main theme of your deck. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you'd have to be a lot of removal. There are some draw spells that this will be in.
That's true.
You could have your removal, but also have Jessica's Will.
That's true. That's great with Jessica's Will. Gross.
Sign in Blood. We've all died or killed somebody to a Sign in Blood. Mm-hmm. That has a target. Git Probe has a target. Mm-hmm. So you could have 20 spells, but 12, 13 of them are a removal, and you've got 7 or 8 that also have a single target. I mean, extra turn spells that with targets, right?
Yeah, like, not all of them do it, but Time Warp does.
Time Stretch, both of them are target player. You don't build a deck around Spinerock Tyrant. Mm-hmm. You have a deck that Spinerock Tyrant naturally fits into because of the way that it's currently constructed. And
like Zevlor.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like, cool, Spinerock Tyrant goes into that deck because this deck already meets the criteria, and the criteria are, I need 20 plus spells that have a single target.
Right. Tricky to meet this bar, but I did want to talk about it because it feels like it reads a lot more powerful than it is. And it will be really powerful when it's good.
It is a 5/5 flyer for 5. So
6/6.
Oh, 6/6 flyer for 5.
With Wither.
So you don't have to copy a ton of things. Mm-hmm. You copy one thing, it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? So like, you can also think of it on that level. It's like, it is just a big flyer at a pretty good rate. And so if you cast this and have 2 mana open and copy a removal spell,
that's quite good.
you're fine with it, right? Like you're not, it's not like the best card ever, but then you copy 2 more things and it's been the best card ever now.
That's true. There are definitely worlds where this card is going to feel insane. It's just not going to be as reliable as like a double vision that just copies whatever you cast.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of games where you're staring at it being like, I don't have enough mana to cast this and cast a removal spell, or I don't have a removal spell or a single target spell at all, in which case I don't want to cast this, and that'll feel bad, but... Okay.
All right. We're moving on to the next one. It is Springleaf Parade.
All right. This is green, and X for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, create X 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature tokens with changeling. So they're every creature type. And then it also says creature tokens you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Okay. So this creates green, X, create X Birds of Paradise, basically.
Yep. Which seems great.
Pretty good.
The natural comp is something like Awaken the Woods, has a very similar effect. So it's green, X, it's at sorcery speed, and it gives you forest lands.
And Awaken the Woods very powerful and sees a ton of play.
It does. It usually sees play in landfall decks.
That's what I was going to say is like they're comps, but the reason you play Awaken the Woods is to get like 10 landfall triggers in a turn.
Yeah.
So I don't think you would play Springleaf Parade in the same decks.
No, but the Springleaf Parade also has the static ability of all your tokens tap for mana.
That's true. So it's a Cryptolith right for tokens.
Creature tokens tap for mana. Yeah, it's like at its floor, it's Cryptolith right for tokens. Yeah. And you could pay green X, and I think that, or green X equals 0, and I think that's a complete, if you have a bunch of tokens on the board.
Yeah, I think that's totally a thing you could do. At least not make 1.
Yeah. So this idea that it's like a more flexible Cryptolith right that says if you don't have a board, here's a board, seems quite powerful to me.
Yeah, as I was looking into this, there are a lot of cards that are 2 pips and X, create some amount of X amount of tokens, and then some additional other upside, right? So there's Aggressive Biomancy, which is XX and 2, but it creates a bunch of tokens, and then those tokens fight things. So that's the upside is the fight. There's Farmer Cotton, creates X1/1s, and then makes food tokens. Food's the upside. Goblin Negotiation deals damage, and then the excess damage becomes goblins. Secure the Waste is the classic one from the old days, which is just 1 colored pips, and X makes X1/1s, but it's at instant speed.
Right.
So like, where does this fit into that continuum? Because a lot of the cards I mentioned, see varying levels of play.
Yeah. I think it fits right in there. I mean, you're looking for... Do I have a lot of ways to spend all this mana? Do I naturally have a lot of creature tokens? It's not going in a deck that doesn't care about tokens.
Right.
I think like it's definitely a token card.
Yeah, you have to be sort of in a dedicated token deck and creature token deck. Right.
Because the upside of this is that your creatures tap for mana and you have other creatures that can give you this mana back, right?
It's a little unfortunate they didn't template it so you can pay X somehow with the tap for mana thing on the board. Like this creature enters, put a trigger on the stack, you can then pay X. So if you already had tokens, you could tap them.
That's cute. Yeah, I like that idea. It would be... Or at least just give it Convoke. That's kind of fun.
There you go. That's an easy way to do it. But then it could be any creatures, not just tokens.
Yeah, that's true. Token Voke. Yeah, so it's... I could see it being cast as like X is 0. I could see it being cast as X is 20. And I think that flexibility is really interesting. And I don't play a ton of the cards that say my creatures tap for mana. It's just not something I even think about when I'm deck building. Not because I don't think it's good. It's just not really something that not a tool in my tool bag, I guess. Right. But that's a very powerful ability to give all your tokens, to turn your tokens into something more than what they are, which is the point of token decks. I don't know if I run it anywhere outside of a token deck unless I care about a creature type.
Yeah, because this technically makes elves or whatever.
Right. This makes elves. This makes anything. Yeah. This makes merfolk, and it makes you merfolk with tap abilities, which is really powerful. So I would, if I was looking at a Typal deck that cares about having a lot of something, this is a really cheap way to make like a ton of dragons, for example. Sure. Like if you have a thing that says for the number of dragons you control.
Whenever a dragon you control attacks.
But whenever a dragon you control enters, this gives you a ton of them for very efficient, much more efficient than you would get a dragon for normally. So I think that is another place to think about it.
I think it's pretty powerful because the threat to untap with 7 1/1s is not existential, but the threat to untap with 7 extra mana kind of is. So it can win you the game on an axis that the token decks aren't usually, right? Like usually you got to untap with 7 and then have the pump spell. And even with the pump spell, if it's just the 7 tokens in a certain point in the game, that can't necessarily, unless it's Craterhoof, kill everybody. This gives you the ability to like increase that lead in a way that's like off your normal axis of like either I create tokens or I pump those tokens. And this is like, oh no, I can just out deploy the table, which is the way I like to win a lot. It's just get yourself into a position where you just have a huge resource advantage. So this can give that.
Yeah.
I do find that the cost, the 2nx is just more in the game than it feels like when you read it. And you're often looking at it being like,
I'm going to cast this for 5. That's my whole turn.
That's my whole turn. I make 3 1/1s. And then everyone's going to be like, oh no, he's got 9 mana next turn. And like, you know, it's not a big enough advantage for the heat it's going to bring maybe. Yeah. So I do think this is pretty good, but I think it's probably a little less good than I think it is right now.
The big difference I was thinking about this is like Cryptolith, right? When I'm sorting cards in my deck into whatever categories they go in, I would sort Cryptolith right into an enhancer category where it's like, when I have a thing, this makes it better. This sort of gives you the thing that it's making better. So I could qualify this as a ramp card. Like I would feel better about calling this 100% a ramp card than I would like an Elven Chorus or a Cryptolith, right? Something like that.
Interesting.
Because it comes with both halves of it, and I would put it in the token category. So it does this thing that we talk about all the time in the deck building template where it's like you want cards with overlap. This makes tokens, this also gives you mana. Ramp. This is overlap.
Yeah, this is a ramp card and like core synergy token card.
Right.
I count Cryptolith as ramp every time, but I wouldn't put it in a deck unless I'm going to have enough creatures in that deck to like make it work.
Right. I just don't think it like gets me to where like it doesn't get my plan started where I usually like ramp that like it gets my plan started faster, and this is like it makes your plan better.
Yeah, I think it's ramp like Gilded Lotus's ramp.
Sure.
Where it's like
explosive,
you don't play it on turn 2.
Right,
you play it on turn 6 and you're like you thought I only had 6 mana to work with this turn. I have 12.
Right, yeah. Let's move on to the next one. We've got the next page. Subterfuge. This is a dolphin dragonfly bird. It's an elemental incarnation. 4 and a blue for a elemental incarnation. It's a 3/5. When this creature enters, target creature gains flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards until end of turn.
That many.
It also has Encore for 7 blue, so 9 mana to Encore this.
9 mana, you make 3 of these that all give themselves or each other flying, and then you'll draw 9.
And you draw 9 cards, so it's 9 mana, deal 9 mana, deal 9, draw 9 on an empty board.
Yeah. Comparisons to Starwinder. Cold-Eyed Selkie is another sort of old one that has evasion plus draws that many. You have to pump it though. It's a 1/1.
It's very similar to Starwinder in my head. Because Starwinder has this warp ability that you can sort of do this for 1 turn, and then later it has this like big impactful ability.
It has that ability, but it doesn't give evasion to something, so it doesn't like inherently help you take advantage of it.
That's true. The flying makes a big difference.
Subterfuge does that. I had a couple questions here, which is one is how much better is that many than just draw 1 on hit, like Coastal Piracy or Waterbender Ascension or something like that?
Depends on the deck. They're just sort of different decks. I think in blue, you naturally gravitate towards small things that fly, and you have a ton of them. So you have fairies or drakes or that kind of thing, birds. So you hit a bunch of things, you draw that many cards. But if you're in Simic or if you're in, I don't know, maybe blue-black, where you have a lot of like big demon flyers, then obviously draw that many becomes a lot better.
And then the second question was, how many cards do you need to draw when you cast this for 5 mana to be happy? It's not that many, actually. I think,
is it like 4?
I think it's 3. 2 might even be fine. I'd play Muldrifter. I mean, Muldrifter I'm obviously planning to abuse. You can abuse this in a similar way. I don't think it goes in Blink decks, but you could do that.
Yeah.
But I think 3 is probably fine. A 5 mana 3/5 that draws you 3, that is kind of better than Muldrifter, better than Cloud Blazer. It doesn't give you a flyer, but those flyers are 2/2s. This is a 3/5.
Yeah, those guarantee draw you. You need something that can attack this turn and can.
That's a good point.
That's like, this doesn't give you the 3 cards for sure.
So you saying you need to draw 4 to make up for the times when you draw 0?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I think
you need
like
to average 2.
Yeah, I mean the ceiling on this is much higher than a Muldrifter.
Wait,
but
the ceiling's lower, but
the ceiling's higher,
but the floor is lower.
But the floor is lower. Yeah,
because you can literally draw 0.
I tend to gravitate towards cards with higher floors than this.
Me too.
I don't love a 5-mana 3/5 that doesn't do anything on an empty board. I like if I'm paying 5 mana for something, give me something.
Yeah.
So this can draw you 20 cards, but like the place that I was picturing it is like a Simic deck with a 6/6 or something. So you play this, give your 6/6 flying, hit, draw 6.
Sure.
But those decks also have like the green draw equal to power effects
Would you rather
that just
cost
definitely do
Rishkar's
them.
expertise there?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
like
100%.
I wouldn't be casting the 3/5.
Well, you
for
cast
it.
Rishkar's expertise and then you cast this off the Rishkar's
There
expertise.
you go, and you double the draw, even better.
But yeah, I agree, because there's a lot of like draw cards equal to the highest power among creatures you control type deal.
Right.
Which is more reliable than this. Because even if they don't kill the creature in response, do you have an attack? Can they in some way blunt that,
Do they remove the creature before it deals damage? There's a lot of ways to foil this draw, especially for 5 mana. I wish this was a little bit cheaper.
Do they block it, right? Because does it have to be
Yeah, they just block it. I mean, it has flying, so like you can
Hopefully
hypothetically find somebody.
Yeah.
But this one's a little risky for me.
Yeah, does the Encore change the calculus at all?
The Encore's really interesting because like 9 mana deal 9, draw 9 in the late game, especially if you can like reduce activated abilities. I believe Encore is an activated ability. Yes. Is really interesting, and like I like that they have haste. I like that they can trigger each other. But is that my plan A? No.
Yeah.
I'm not spending my entire turn to just deal 9 damage and draw 9.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Unless I
not
have
that
a ton
hard
of
for it to
mana.
be a kill later, though.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, but they have that in the graveyard, which means they can do this, get in enough damage to like finish people off later in the game if you
Or
make
give
it
a
that
big
far.
thing a flyer.
Yeah.
Or make a big thing a flyer. It doesn't have to target itself if you do it. So
Yeah.
you're like, okay, if I encore this for 9, I give 3 of my creatures flying, and if they hit, I'm an even bigger problem than I was. Good with trample, but you already like the flying should be enough. It makes me a little nervous. I looked at this entire cycle of elementals and I was like, these kind of just don't go anywhere outside the elemental deck. They're too expensive.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about one of them.
Not my favorite.
Yeah, this one is bonkers,
This
though.
one's very good, yeah.
This is Tam, Mindful First Year. 1 and a hybrid Simic for a 2/2 Gorgon Wizard. Each other creature you control has hexproof from each of its colors. Target creature you control, it has tap. Target creature you control becomes all colors until end of turn. So everything naturally has hexproof from its colors, and then you can use this to give it hexproof from all the colors.
Right. So harkens to Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes, or Giver of Runes. Yeah. Obviously, like a very good card, still a staple to this day. It's got some upside and some downside. So Mother of Runes gives protection, which protects from targeted stuff, similar to hexproof, but also has an unblockability aspect.
And a protection from damage.
Yeah.
It's really hexproof plus.
Yeah. In some ways, not quite as good as Mother of Runes. However, Mother of Runes doesn't give any static protection at all, whereas Tam says, hey, I do turn off whatever colors that creature is, whatever your commander is, presumably at least these 2 colors and probably more, is protected from its own colors without any tapping or any activating of ability at all going on.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
is
that's a pretty interesting.
You don't need haste. It's just going to give you some blanket level of protection before it's even turned online. And then once you can activate its tap ability, they're locked.
Yeah. Now, I will say Mother of Runes can protect itself.
Yes.
Which makes it even more of a pain in the butt because they're like, all right, I need 2 removal spells. And then do I kill the Mother of Runes with the 2 removal spells? Because if I don't, I'm going to be in this position again later. Yeah, I'll kill the thing. Yeah. Whereas this doesn't do exactly that.
Right.
But anyway, anytime you're comparing something to Mother of Runes, it's probably pretty good because Mother of Runes is very good.
Yes. Do you think the cost difference makes a huge difference between 2 mana and 1 mana?
It's definitely a difference. I mean, just the fact that you can get Mother of Runes out on turn 1 and you can run it out there because it's pretty safe most of the time. And then it just protects itself until you want to protect something else with it is a big deal. And there's a lot more. The 2-drop slot is way more crowded.
I agree.
Just
than
because,
the 1-drop slot, for sure.
Just because mana rocks and ramp spells and a lot of commanders sit there now. There's just a lot you want to do at 2, and 1's still like, hey, if I got a 1-drop in my hand, I'm feeling pretty good of any kind. I rarely am sitting there with like 2 1-drops in hand, and even then you're like, cool, 1-drop, turn 2, Signet, 1 second 1-drop. So you're still fine in that scenario. Yeah. So anyway, I do think this is quite good though as just a protection pieces go, because it's pretty efficient at like static protection and additional protection if you need it.
Yeah, the colors that I'm most interested in this card are Bant and Sultai, especially if you have a commander that you know is a lightning rod. Like if you're playing Chulane, this card's incredible because once it's on the battlefield, first of all, it's a cheap creature, which Chulane loves. Second of all, you've got protection from green and blue and white. I like it more in Bant than I do in Sultai, I think. Just because Swords and Path are in every single deck that has white on it. I think like just having that blanket protection the turn it hits the battlefield is so powerful.
Yeah, that's true. We should mention for those that aren't aware, the hexproof does not protect against stuff that doesn't target. So anything that's like destroy all creatures or blasphemous act or things like that.
It's getting gone.
Yeah, this won't protect again. Whereas Mother and Giver of Runes do provide some protection from like blasphemous act because a creature with protection from color cannot take damage from creatures or from sources of that color.
Right. We also should mention the color identity is not the same as actual color.
That's a good point.
So Kenrith the Returned King is a 5-color commander that can have 5 colors in the 99, but it is a 1-color card. It is a white card.
So it would only hit protection from white unless you tap Tam. The next card is Twilight Diviner. It is 2 and a black for a 3/3 elf cleric. It says when this creature enters, surveil 2. And then whenever one or more creatures you control enter, if they entered or were cast from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of one of them. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Woo!
So if you command the Dreadhorde with this out, you'll get whatever you wanted, but only make a copy of one of them.
Yep.
So,
but that's
or Aberrant Return, I guess, is what I would do. It wouldn't have the -1 counter the copy either.
Yeah, but that seems good. You're only going to have one major target anyway. Like
if you reanimate, it's only one thing, and then you'll get a copy of it, and you won't have to pay the life for the copy.
I mean, you're playing this in decks that can do this every turn, right? That can reanimate a creature every single turn. So you can play this, cast Animate Dead, make 2 of the things you animated dead, which is probably something gnarly. Yeah. That's how those decks work.
Yeah. We said negative or +1/+1 counter decks were like top 3, maybe top 5 archetypes. I'd say Reanimator's right up there too. Sure. A lot of the traditionally most powerful commanders of our time, like Marin, sat in that spot for a long time. There's been Caradors, and there are a lot of decks that are built around reanimating things from the graveyard. And this just force multiplies what those decks are already doing. So this automatic include, like I have 27 decks or whatever, I'd say automatic include in 5 of them.
Yeah.
So just because I have that amount of Reanimator decks, and most people that have, I don't know if it's 1/5 or 1/6 or 1/7, but it is some percentage of your decks are Reanimator decks. Like most people that have more than 5 decks have one.
I will also say that like one of the biggest weaknesses of Reanimator decks is single target removal. Yeah. And having 2 copies of the best thing you've reanimated just shores up a lot of your weaknesses to that. Like I have a Blex deck that's a Reanimator deck, and if I bring one thing in, they're like, well, we got to kill that. But if you have 2, now we need a board wipe. Now it's not about what removal spells. It's about handling everything. And the thing is, this isn't a do nothing even if you don't have a reanimation spell. This has surveil when it enters, so it can hit the battlefield, mill 2, leave a reanimation spell on top. It can set up your draws. It can fill up your graveyard. And then once you get going, it is extremely powerful.
Yeah, the cost for including this is so low. It's a 3-mana spell too. And you can envision turns pretty easily where you play this, then play Animate Dead, or play this, then play Reanimate, and immediately get 2 of whatever you got. And then the Twilight Diviner did its job. If it keeps doing it, that's awesome. You'll probably win. But even if that's the end of it, they're like, no, we're not letting that happen. You're going to kill it. You're like, yeah, but I got 2 of a thing already. Like, I'm just ahead on that exchange by a decent margin, especially if you get something crazy.
Yep. I'm just thinking about this in Mirko because it comes in and surveils, so it triggers Mirko. You so mill you mill a clone, you bring a clone back, you copy the Twilight Diviner, and you get a second one.
Oh my lord. Brutal. Yeah, this card seems really, really good. It's really going to be good too with like Persistent Undying, which we do keep talking about because a lot of cards are good with those right now. Luminous Broodmoth, another one. I thought Nim Deathmantle is a card that just like, I don't know, because like every turn you can sack a thing, pay it, get 2 copies of it.
All right, up next is Village Pillagers. This is 3 red for a creature Goblin Warrior. It has Wither. It's a 5/5. And whenever this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Now remember, it has Wither, so it deals that damage in -1 counters. And whenever a creature an opponent controls with a counter on it dies, you create a tapped treasure token. Okay. So this has a similar line of text to like Revel in Riches. Is whenever a creature dies, you make a treasure token or a tapped treasure token. Obviously, it doesn't have the win the game effect. But this is a very powerful ETB. It's like blanket the board in -1/-1 counters. And now anytime any of those creatures die, I get paid out.
Yeah, and if it kills any right then, you'll get paid out right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They come in tapped, so you're not going to be mana positive right away, but that's okay.
Yeah. And this creature has to be around when the other things die for it to see it and get the treasure. But yeah, it definitely marks a bunch of stuff. But it won't, like they play future stuff that doesn't have counters on it. That future stuff won't be marked with the counter, so they won't get treasures for. Yeah.
The decks that I think this is most comfortable in is obviously -1/-1 counter decks. Sure, that's the precon that this came from. But I will be playing this in decks that can copy creatures. So red commanders are super, super popular for getting multiple copies of a single creature. Delina Wildmage, Calamity, Galloping Inferno, like temporary red copies of this card.
The way Jimmy plays a Tali,
spiral in a wild way.
Yeah.
Because now you have Village Pillagers, you make a second copy, it withers again. So now everything has two -1/-1 counters on it. And if they die, it triggers both of them.
Yeah.
So you get 2 treasures for each one that's dying. And that's only if you have 2 copies. Most of the time in decks like this, like Delina can trigger multiple times, Calamity makes 2. So you would have 3, everything gets -3/-3, you get that many treasure tokens. That is a wild swing. It's a one-sided board wipe that gets around indestructible and gives you a huge amount of mana for your next turn. That's where I'm looking at Village Pillagers and any red deck that clones or blue-red deck that clones. I think this is a great option.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like just Phantasmal Image this thing and then just clone it. And you've done it 3 times and you've probably killed everything and gotten like 15 treasure tokens or whatever.
Yeah, if you didn't kill it, you still left stuff around that's marked.
Yeah, you can also blink it to get it sort of that additional counters and stuff. So yeah, I think you need some synergies. For sure.
Yeah.
It's not just like put it in red decks, but -1 counter decks and then anything that's sort of like cloney, blinky.
Yeah.
Maybe you can Mirrorform.
Yeah.
Okay, you play it. There's some amount of 1/1s, a couple. You know, you get like 3 treasure off of it. Then you Mirrorform, turn everything into that, and then blink it or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's sweet. That's sweet.
I'm just looking for ways to use Mirrorform.
Yeah, I think this card's really cool. I think even if you're in like a Felden deck that can bring it back multiple times, it's pretty good.
Yeah, anything that's got mana generation tied to, you know, what it's doing is going to be very powerful because it force multiplies the lead that it creates for you. Like just killing their stuff is good for you. But if simultaneously to killing it, you're creating a mana advantage, now it's like, how do they catch up to that? They have to redeploy to catch up to get even with you, but then you have so much more mana to deploy over the top of what they do to catch up.
All right. I want to move quickly through this last couple of sections just because they are popular. There's a bunch of new changelings. Many of them are vanilla or are just sort of 2 mana and aren't going to do a whole bunch for you. But there's a few that really expand your suite of changelings for all the Typal decks out there or the underserved Typal decks. Chomping Changeling is probably the best one. It's just a Reclamation Sage that has all the types. So
the Changelamation Sage.
Yeah.
Wait, Reclamation Change.
Reclamation Change.
Yeah.
Ling. But this is also good in like, even in a Miram deck where it's like whenever you cast a dragon, you copy it. This is dragon. There's a 3 mana rock that also has Changeling. I think that's kind of neat. And Mutable Explorer is a Changeling that enters and makes a land.
A Mutavault.
A Mutavault, yeah.
I mean, that one's good because it's ramp.
Because it's ramp, and like anytime you have any amount of synergy with your vegetables, synergy. And then we're going to talk about some Typal cards that we know are going to be good, and there's not a whole lot to say about them. The first one is Bloodline Bidding. This is 6 black, but it has Convoke. It's a sorcery. It says choose a creature type, return all creature cards of the chosen type from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yep.
Patriarch Bidding, we play that. So we'll play this.
Yeah. Yep, we do that. The next one is Celestial Reunion. This is sort of a complicated green sun zenith, but you can only find creatures of a certain type. It's green and X. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may choose a creature type and behold 2 creatures of that type. It's green, X is 2. I'm going to show you 2 elves. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. If the spell's additional cost was paid and the revealed cost is the chosen type, put that card onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your hand. So you can pay green and X and just tutor that card to your hand. Doesn't matter what type it is, or if you're building around a type, you can put it onto the battlefield. Collective Inferno is a doubler for a certain type. It has Convoke. It's 5 mana. It's going to be very good in Typal decks. And Harmonized Crescendo is 4 blue for an instant with Convoke. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. So distant melody, but instant speed with Convoke. All of those cards will probably see play. Give them a look for your Typal decks. Okay. That was a lot of cards.
Yeah.
We should probably tell them how to buy some.
Oh, right. cardkingdom.com/command. That's the place you want to go if you want to pick up your Lorwyn Eclipse cards or any other cards from the history of Magic. They have a huge inventory. If you go to cardkingdom.com/command, you will find out not only do they have the version you're looking for and the condition you're looking for, because they have a huge inventory, but they also have a really cool buying process that lets you just copy and paste into their deck builder. And it is honestly like a total game changer. And I get so frustrated now buying from other sites that don't have it, because you have to open like 50 different tabs and you're juggling like, oh, if I buy from this vendor, I'll combine the shipping and all this complication that Card Kingdom is like, no, they've simplified the whole thing. Convenience is the name of the game with Card Kingdom, because not only is the buying process convenient, so is the receiving process. It all arrives on your doorstep in one convenient package. So it's instant gratification. Just sleeve it up and you are ready to play. So if you're buying a bunch of Twilight Diviners like I need to.
Yeah, right.
Some Mirrorforms, maybe some Rhys's, and what was the first one? No, the
Bitterbloom Bearer, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. If you're buying a bunch of cards like I am, then cardkingdom.com/command is the best place to do that.
Nailed it. Bitterbloom Bearer.
There you go.
Once you have those cards in your hand, you're building a new deck, so you need new toys to go along with it. Go to ultrapro.com/command to get the sleeves, the deck boxes, the binders, the playmats, everything that you need to keep your collection organized. Plus, they've just got high quality stuff that goes on these crazy discounts sometimes, especially at the beginning of the year or post holidays. Sign up for their newsletter and they'll let you know when they get like a huge price slash and you can buy all your stuff. I always know that I'm going to be building a new deck, so stockpiling a couple of deck boxes and sleeves at the house goes a long way for me. Sign up for that newsletter and you can support the show if you use that affiliate link at ultrapro.com/command.
All right, before we wrap up here, let's do the traditional, what is our favorite card in the 99 from this episode, and also what we think is the most powerful card in the 99.
Let's start with favorite, as we always do. You've mentioned a couple of these already. Do you want to start?
I think Mirrorform is my favorite.
So fun.
Yeah, it just seems really cool. It sits in a really nice spot where it's fun, but powerful. It'll be interesting. It creates a lot of decision points for you, trying to leverage the game into a state where you think you can where it'll be the most effective. I really like that kind of play pattern. It's got all the stuff I want, like instant speed. So I'm really excited to play Mirrorform. I think it's like in the mold of like the traditional, we used to call them fun-ofs type, but it is powerful enough to actually warrant in the deck. It's not like, oh, this is just fun. It's like, no, it'll do crazy broken stuff too. I like cards that you draw and you're like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to use this because the game will need to progress. But based on how it's progressing, I'm confident I can find a way to leverage this in a really cool way. So I like that a lot. Of course, I got to give a shout to Glen, Elendra Guardian, which I think most people would have predicted is my favorite card from the set. And, it's not far from my heart, but Mirrorform takes it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, Mirrorform is the kind of card that's just going to make a memory. You're going to do something crazy. You're going to have 27 It that betrays. Yeah. Like, it's just going to, something nuts is going to happen when you cast it. It'll be really fun. Mine's Dream Harvest. Honestly, I've been waiting for a spell like this for a long time. I really like big spells decks, but a lot of them tend to be just kind of rude. They like steal your turn or take extra turns or take up a bunch of space or like steal all your stuff. And this is one that feels super palatable at lower power levels, but still feels useful and flexible enough that it's going to be good when you cast it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to put it in a couple of decks. I hope it leads to some cool, interesting things because it feels like it will.
Yeah, I like this card a lot because it'll scale with your pod pretty well too, because like you're casting mostly stuff off their decks. So that's stuff they put in their decks and they should therefore be able in some ways to handle. Now they might not be able to handle just the sheer amount of what it is, and that's what you're hoping for with this card, but at the same point, you're not likely to get something that's like, oh geez, I didn't know we were playing with that card. Well, that card's from your deck.
It also leads to like those turns that Mirrorform kind of leads to, where you're like, I untapped with like so they gave me like an Urza and 2 mana rocks and like this equipment. What can I do with this?
Yeah, how do I make this?
And
how do I MacGyver this together into a win?
Exactly, which is like, those are my favorite kind of moments. So hopefully that one's really fun. But let's talk about the most powerful card in the 99. I feel like there's a lot of cards that are sort of on the same level, but I'm curious which one you think rose to the top here.
Twilight Diviner stood out to me. Obviously for casual, I just think that it's a strategy we see a lot of. There's a whole lot of marquee cards that are reanimation cards that just immediately goes in. And of all the cards, I think it was the one where I'm like, well, I know automatically this is going to be good in, X, Y, Z, A, B, C of my decks. Like I got to stop. I got to go farther than 3 because I have more than 3. But like, I don't have to think really hard. These decks are just already doing that. And this it has to have a spot. And it's like difficult to misuse it. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card's going to be really good when it's on the other side of the board from you. It's going to feel really broken, and that's fun.
How about you?
I had a lot of trouble with this one. I think Twilight Diviner is a decent answer, but it doesn't do a ton like on its own. It's just good and powerful strategies. So the one that I ended up going with is Morningtide's Light, because I can just see it being in your hand and being like, this card wins me the game. I'm going to it's going to get me a clean attack right now. It's going to protect my life total and everybody's going to chip each other out. And then I'm going to guarantee is not true because you may lose your board in the meantime. But I have a very good chance of having a great turn after that. So I'm curious about what it feels like in hand. It may feel a little bit clunkier than it looks. But honestly, firing this thing off on turn 5 when you have a decent board and can just get a ton of free swings on people might buy you enough of a lead that it feels quite broken. So I'm curious about seeing about this card. It smells like it might surprise me.
I'm definitely lower on it than you are. My thought is a year from now, Clever Concealment and Teferi's Protection and stuff will still be in play, but I don't think we're going to be seeing this card much. I think it's just narrow. It is definitely like our play styles. I am not that high on something that allows me to attack. So to me, that's not worth almost anything. But for you, obviously, who likes to attack, you value something that enables the ability to attack more than I do. So
yeah, and it says I can swing out here and I'm not going to get cracked back on, and I can open up. It feels almost like a weird goad kind of card. I mean, it doesn't make them attack. I don't know. I'm really curious about
my opponents are just still going to team up on me when I cast this. They just won't hit the person I want them to.
They don't have any blockers.
Yeah, I just did that. They were like, nope, don't trust you.
No, you're being wily over there. I don't know. I think Morningtide's Light is going to be really interesting. You're like, all right, kill all the tokens on the board. I get a free attack, and I blink this for value. It may be that kind of card. We'll see.
We'll see.
This has been a big ol' episode.
As it always is. So big thanks to our amazing team here that has to put it together. Sebastian Salazar, Karina Cruz, Josh Diaz, John Schneider, Gaurav Gulati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Becky Bell, Rachel Kendra, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and of course, our good friend, Jimmy Wong.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you're enjoying Lorwyn. We'll see you next time.